Rain poured, gun drawn. A white cop snarled at a black woman in plain clothes, "Show me ID." But what he didn't know, she runs the whole damn department. This isn't just a mistake, it's a career-ending humiliation caught on camera. Stay till the end, because when she flashes that badge, the system shatters. The rain fell in heavy sheets, a relentless torrent that mirrored the tension in the dimly lit alleyway. Steam rose from the gutters, mingling with the thick fog that wrapped itself around the towering brick buildings. A lone streetlight flickered, casting sporadic pools of light that danced across the scene. There she stood, her heart pounding like a distant war drum. Sheriff Jasmine Calloway, a black woman dressed in her unassuming civilian clothes, was frozen in a moment suspended between disbelief and anger. Just a few feet away, a white police officer had his gun drawn, its muzzle pointed directly at her chest, eyes wild with the prejudice that had long been festering in silence. "Show me some ID," he barked, his voice cutting through the air with the sharpness of a blade. It was more of a command than a request, underscored by the threat inherent in the weapon he held. His hand trembled slightly, a testament to the adrenaline coursing through him, yet his grip remained ironclad. Jasmine had anticipated many things stepping into her role as sheriff, but not this blatant disrespect in the line of duty, not this calculated discrimination masquerading as protocol. She kept her hands still, aware of the thin line she tread between life and death. In her mind, scenes from her life flashed with all the clarity of a lightning strike, the sacrifices, the silent battles, the public skepticism she had been forced to endure to reach the position she now held. "I don't want any trouble," she said, her voice calm, honed from years of confronting and diffusing racial ignorance and bias. Her mind raced, considering her next move in this dangerous game. "Let's lower our weapons and talk." But the officer's face only hardened, his eyes narrowing with an ingrained suspicion that knew no reason. His badge glinted menacingly in the erratic glow of the streetlight, a symbol of authority that he wielded with reckless confidence. "Just do what I say," he repeated, his voice a low snarl now, cracking with manufactured authority, oblivious to the absurdity of the situation. How could he not see it? Jasmine's instincts screamed at her to stand her ground, to assert the mantle of leadership she bore, the very mantle he was so blind to. Yet the dark history of interactions like these reverberated within her, countless stories of those who had stood defiant only to be silenced in undeserved violence. This was a test, she realized, not just of her individual courage but of the system she represented, a system that all too often turned a blind eye to the bias it harbored. "Officer, who are you protecting right now?" she asked, voice firm yet controlled, her inner resolve unyielding as diamonds beneath pressure. "We're on the same side. Look closer and recognize me. I'm Sheriff Jasmine Calloway." A moment of confusion flickered across his face, his certainty shaken but unwilling to fully yield. It was the opening she needed, a crack in the armor of institutional racism, where her words could take root. This wasn't just about her, it was about proving that authority could be both challenged and redefined. "Where's your badge?" the officer demanded again, though his voice wavered this time, doubt creeping into his demeanor. But before she could reach for her identification, the weight of the situation began shifting as shadows emerged from the buildings. A couple of bystanders, curious yet cautious, moved closer, phones conspicuously in hand, documenting each charged second, each breath caught in fragile anticipation. Powerlessness turned to empowerment through the unseen collective of social media, their presence a silent reminder of the overlooked accountability that lived with each captured frame. Jasmine's pulse steadied as she felt the surging wave of change rising behind her, kinship and solidarity in unexpected places. Still, years of surviving taught her restraint, so she slowly reached for her ID. Her every move was deliberate, a testament to a lifetime learned under implicit threat. The officer's stance faltered further as the badge came into view, the revelation immediate and inescapable. With it, his arrogance dissipated, replaced by a hollow shock that stretched his face into a mask of uncomfortable realization. Around them, the rain persisted, an unwavering curtain drawing attention back into stark clarity, with the reality of his overstep now punctuating the air around them. This moment stood as testament to what lay unchallenged in the systemic norms of their community. "How about this conversation now?" Jasmine asked, breaking the charged silence, her voice steady, the calm before the storm. It was rhetorical, the answer already embodied in the hushed echoes of shared understanding. The officer lowered his weapon, confusion replaced with an awareness that would haunt him beyond this alley, beyond this night. Her gaze never wavered as she stood tall, not just for herself, but for every silent voice she was determined to amplify in the days to come, a resonating symbol against the backdrop of prejudice. The crowd dispersed gradually, leaving their digital mark, with intentions far-reaching beyond the confines of the night. Jasmine turned to leave, her figure cloaked in an aura of grit and grace, a powerful silhouette against the violent wrestling of power and prejudice that defined their shared reality. She wasn't just a black woman in leadership, but the herald of overdue evolution, guiding hope within the fringes of injustice and the brink of feasible change. Where does this leave us as a society, watching from the edge of change? Can we afford to remain silent? Please share your thoughts and stay tuned for more narratives that challenge and inspire. Jasmine's footsteps echoed down the narrow alleyway, the click of her heels punctuating the silence that followed the dramatic encounter. Her breath came in deep, controlled inhalations, each one calming her racing heart and sharpening the edge of her resolve. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean but for the residue of what had transpired. A stain of prejudice that no amount of rain could rinse away. Her mind flickered with images of the officer's face as his bravado crumbled into bewildered shame. There was a bitter satisfaction in it, a reminder that knowledge was power, even in this age-old battle against systemic racism. As she exited the alley, the modest buildings gave way to the broader streets of the city, bustling with life even in the twilight hours. She pulled her phone from her pocket, the screen lighting up with messages and missed calls. News of the standoff had spread faster than wildfire, a match igniting dry kindling of long-standing racial tension. She knew the calls were more than just expressions of concern. They were the tendrils of a narrative unfolding, pulling at her from all directions. But for a moment, she felt an overwhelming need to escape the cacophony of voices, the questions, the judgments that would soon follow. Her path led instinctively to the small park on the corner, a place of refuge amidst the chaos, a sanctuary untouched by the bitterness tethered to her identity. Finding an empty bench, she sank into its embrace, the cool metal bringing a clarity she sought. Her thoughts returned to the precarious balance she constantly maintained, that careful line between defiance and diplomacy, between her duty to protect and the personal stakes attached to her consciousness and skin. Raising her eyes to the sky, she found the stars began to peek through the clearing clouds, pinpricks of enduring light in the vast darkness. They reminded her of her grandmother's voice, soft yet indomitable, urging her as a child to shine amid obscurity. It was her grandmother's strength that had guided her to police work, believing resolute law enforcement could foster justice where laws seemed most unjust. The memory was bittersweet. It surfaced forgotten emotions, carved anew from the heartache her current reality often suppressed. Her grandmother had stood as a bulwark against the manure of deeply rooted racism within their community, a quiet warrior whose battles often found no place in headlines or history books. Jasmine was continuing that legacy in her ways. Right here, right now, she felt closer than ever to this invisible but indomitable force. Her phone buzzed insistently in her pocket, drawing her back to the present. She sighed, unfolding the knot of emotions to face the oncoming tide of responsibility with a determination that did not waver. Jasmine's identity had challenged, and now, more importantly, it had forged a narrative out of shadows. It was time to navigate its trajectory, channeling it through action and influence. Answering the call, she heard the crisp, authoritative voice on the other end, the county supervisor, woven with both concern and a professional stiffness she had grown familiar with. "Sheriff Calloway, I heard about what happened tonight. We need to present a united front." "I expect nothing less," Jasmine replied, the edge in her voice unmistakable. "Tonight can't just be another incident report lost in the system. We need real change." The supervisor hesitated, a moment of continual systemic inertia that she recognized too well. "We have reporters asking questions. I need you to be prepared for the fallout. There's a crowd gathering and this could spiral." "I'm aware," she said steadily, her voice as unyielding as the principles she held dear. "And believe me, I'm ready to speak. This won't be buried under bureaucracy." Ending the call, Jasmine knew the path ahead would be far from easy. It twisted through prejudice and power structures, but she was not alone. She had allies, a community burgeoning with latent power waiting for its moment to stand. The weight of it all settled around her as she rose from the bench, her eyes caressing the park, a familiar tableau now infused with newfound purpose. Walking back towards the city, her pace quickened with resolve. Each step beat a rhythm against the pavement, a rhythm that echoed her grandmother's sagas of strength and resilience. Jasmine Calloway was more than a sheriff. She was a conduit for change, a complex figure chosen to illuminate the fallacies of the world she swore to protect. Her thoughts turned to the upcoming press conference and the words she needed to etch into collective memory. They would be forceful and unrelenting, carrying the weight of history, the urgency of now, and the hope of tomorrow. Her voice, like her role, would be undeniable, refusing to be smothered by the dust-laden blanket of systemic apathy. And as the stars blinked in the endless tapestry above, Jasmine's presence moved steadily forward, carving a future from the detritus of indignation and injustice, intent on writing her story alongside the many whose voices echoed within hers yet went unheard. Her narrative, stitched with determination and empathy, stood undeniable, even when shrouded in darkness. What are your thoughts watching Sheriff Jasmine's journey unfold? Please share as your voices empower this narrative. Stay tuned for the next chapter in this journey toward justice. Jasmine stood in front of the tall, imposing courthouse, its stone facade etched with the weight of history and the judgments it housed. The memory of her swearing-in ceremony was vivid, the events of that day cascading back into her consciousness with the clarity of a freshly uncovered photograph. She remembered the room, large and ornate, yet suffocating in its expectation and scrutiny. It had been a sweltering August afternoon, the heat wrapping around the city, permeating every crevice and alleyway. The courthouse had been crowded, whispers rippling through the assembled crowd like the distant rumble of an approaching storm. Reporters lined the back of the room, cameras hungry for a moment that was never supposed to occur. Jasmine's fingers had gripped the podium, her knuckles white against the dark wood as she looked out into a sea of faces, some supportive, others wary, and a select few steeped in thinly veiled disdain. Her new badge gleamed prominently on her chest, a beacon of both achievement and responsibility. She knew the true gravity of her presence as the first black woman sheriff in county history. It was a groundbreaking narrative that threatened the old, calcified roots of the establishment. The officials present had been carefully arranged, like pieces on a chessboard, their expressions carefully groomed with practiced neutrality. Yet she could sense the tension crackling beneath the surface. She was an interloper in their midst, a disruptor in a system that maintained itself on a precarious balance of power. Her speech had resonated with the power of conviction, cutting through the room like a knife. "This badge," she had said, her voice ringing with clarity, "represents not just authority, but a commitment to equality, to justice that reaches every corner of our community." She spoke of accountability, of a vision where law enforcement served rather than dictated, where protection was a given, not a privilege. She spoke of her belief in the power of change, and challenged those before her to recognize and embrace the same. She'd watched as some nodded slowly, their eyes betraying an unwilling respect begrudgingly given. Others had remained stoic, their expressions locked in neutrality, unwilling to concede an inch more than necessary. Among them was Deputy Mayor Alan Trask, a relic of the old guard whose influence kept the scales of justice firmly tipped in favor of the status quo. His gaze had been cold, calculated, a chess player's eyes assessing the threat of a new opponent. But it was not just the officials whose faces she catalogued. It was the ordinary citizens that filled the seats, stirring with cautious hope. They were her mission, her reason for standing here, speaking truth to the power that so often threatened to consume them. Jasmine recalled the brief, formal handshake she exchanged with Trask afterward. His grip had been perfunctory, his smile a taut, plastic expression that never reached his eyes. "Congratulations, Sheriff Calloway," he'd said, the words sliding from his lips like slick oil. "Looking forward to working together." She had met his gaze evenly, refusing to be cowed or impressed by his city hall role. "The work begins now, Mr. Trask, and it's going to be a team effort." The ceremony concluded, the cheers and applause were genuine, yet tempered by the understanding of how much work lay ahead. Those who had doubted her conviction or derided her capacity were the very ones now gripped by an uncomfortable vacuum of uncertainty. In the days following, the headlines celebrated her rise, but also warned of the challenges in uniting an often divided community. As Jasmine stood now on the courthouse steps, the memory of that electrifying day lent strength to her current reality. She had weathered storms of skepticism and emerged emboldened and ever more resolute. The rain had ceased, and the night sky was clear, a canvas of promise and possibility. "Sheriff Calloway," a reporter called out from the growing crowd at the entrance, his voice brimming with urgency and curiosity, the scent of a story that demanded its telling. Her gaze turned towards the throng of voices, faces hidden behind the bright lights of cameras and eager pens. Her presence was a magnet, a testament to the gravity of her role and the bridge she forged between history and hope. She nodded slightly, acknowledging their presence with an openness that invited dialogue, not division. The task at hand was formidable, yet Jasmine was not merely navigating this path, she was defining it, every step echoing the resolve to dismantle barriers and sow seeds of a transformed justice system where stories of discord and anguish could finally transition to those of harmony and reclamation. Once more she felt the eyes of many upon her, scrutinizing, calculating, with some awaiting her misstep while others quietly cheered her strength. Every obstacle was also an opportunity, a chance to reflect the goodwill and determination of those who supported her. This moment was both projection and promise, a testament to perseverance and the undeniable power of identity as a catalyst for change. This was not just a story of a sheriff. It was the reshaping of an entire community, of standing audaciously at the very brink of change with a defiance that refused to yield. How many steps await in Jasmine Calloway's journey to justice? Share your thoughts and support the channel for more insight into these transformative narratives. The courtroom buzzed with an undercurrent of anticipation, the air taut with the heat of anticipation. Rows of wooden pews creaked under the shifting weight of spectators, their voices a hushed murmur as they awaited the commencement of proceedings. This was a day of reckoning not just for Sheriff Jasmine Calloway but for a system long excused from facing its racial biases, a judicial stage where accountability would be put to the test. Jasmine sat at the front, her posture as straight and unyielding as the marble columns that lined the courtroom. She felt the collective gaze of the room upon her, a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and the beginning tendrils of respect. The events from the alley had far-reaching implications now being untangled here within these walls, a microcosm of societal discord seeking resolution. Judge Valerie Owens, a veteran jurist with a reputation for fairness, presided over the hearing. Her gavel lay quiet, but her presence commanded attention. Her gaze moved over the assembly like a lighthouse beam, ensuring the gravity of the situation was not lost on anyone present. On the other side of the aisle, Officer Ryan Collins sat, the figure who had aimed a gun at Jasmine just days before. He appeared smaller here beneath the judicial scrutiny, stripped of the bravado once cloaked in his uniform. His lawyer conferred with him in a low whisper, a steady stream of advice overlaid with a veneer of damage control. The room quieted as Judge Owens began. "We are here today to examine the incident involving Officer Collins and Sheriff Calloway, not as a matter of individual grievance, but as a touchstone for broader issues of racial profiling and systemic bias within our law enforcement community," she pronounced, her voice clear and resonant. Jasmine's heart thudded in her chest, though outwardly she remained composed. This was not only about justice for her, but an opportunity to shine a light on a pervasive problem plaguing communities across the nation. The whispered support of her allies, both known and anonymous, echoed within her, a silent reminder of the stakes. Officer Collins took the stand first, his defense unspooling like an actor re-performing an old script. His lawyer painted a picture of a stressed officer overreacting under the pressure of a misidentified threat. But as his testimony continued, cracks appeared in the narrative, each question exposing the flaw in an argument grounded more in illusion than reality. The prosecutor, assigned specifically for this high-profile case, took her turn. "Officer Collins, were you aware of the sheriff's identity at any point before you drew your weapon?" Her voice crisp and surgical. Collins hesitated, shifting awkwardly on the stand. "No, I was not," he admitted, his voice barely above a reluctant murmur. "And did you question your decision at any time during your interaction with Sheriff Calloway?" she pressed, each word laden with the weight of accountability. Collins paused, beads of sweat appearing along his forehead. I followed protocol as I understood it," he finally replied, though the deflection crumbled under the prosecutor's simmering intensity. Jasmine watched the exchange closely, her focus unyielding. The courtroom was a stage where truth often wrestled with institutional complacency, but today light was demanded to penetrate the shadows. The prosecutor continued to press, unraveling Collins' testimony until the core contradictions exposed the haste and bias that had influenced his actions. Each revelation felt like a weight lifted, the lingering uncertainty giving way to a cleansing clarity that the entire room felt. When Collins finally stepped down, Jasmine's name was called. Walking purposefully to the stand, she drew strength from the silent support of allies scattered throughout the room, a diverse group reflecting the community she vowed to serve. Her vision for an accountable justice system guided her words, as incisive and deliberate as the light filtering through the courtroom window. Officer Collins' actions exposed an unacceptable fault line within our law enforcement structures. She began, her voice unwavering. "I'm here to ensure we don't just patch these cracks, but rebuild the foundation where equity and justice are core principles, not exception." Each question posed to her was met with her characteristic resolve, her answers constructing a narrative that was impossible to deny. Her dignity transformed an arena of judgment into one of transformation, drawing the room into a shared responsibility for rectifying the deep-seated biases illuminated by her experience. Judge Owens listened intently, her expression neutral but attentive to every nuance. Her decisions would reverberate beyond this courtroom, entering the hearts and minds of those who awaited justice through voice and action. Upon adjournment, Jasmine departed the stand amidst hushed respect. The system's cogs were in motion, and the ripple effects of this testimony would stretch far beyond the immediate corridors of influence. Reflecting on the path ahead, she knew this was only the beginning of a crucial journey, certain that history was watching. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed and reporters jostled for her words, but Jasmine moved past them with measured purpose. Today was a step toward something larger than one sheriff or one officer. It was a stride and a journey aimed at reshaping justice itself. How will we choose to engage and support her mission for justice? Lend your voice, share this story, and help shape the change we strive for. The courthouse steps buzzed with a chaotic energy, a throng of journalists, protesters, and onlookers crowding every inch of space. Microphones jostled for position, notepads fluttered like restless doves, and cameras clicked furiously, capturing every move and expression. The public awaiting the emergence of the sheriff knew this was more than a spectacle. It was an emblem of the societal reckoning unfolding before their eyes. Jasmine stood inside, just a heartbeat away from the tumult outside, her mind a whirl of strategy and anticipation. This was not just a testimony of events already sworn to record. It was the tableau of a movement gaining momentum, demanding transparency and justice from the institutions that governed them. She stepped out into the crisp air, the noise swelling as if matching the intensity of her resolve. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm spotlight on the podium hastily set up for her address. As she approached, the crowd hushed, a collective breath held in anticipation of her words. "Thank you all for being here today," Jasmine began, her voice clear and unwavering. The confidence radiated through her, a formidable force shaped by adversity and ambition. Her presence commanded attention, not from fear or obligation but earned respect. What happened in that alleyway is not an isolated incident. It's a stark reminder of the biases deeply embedded within our systems. She paused, the weight of her words settling over the crowd like a tangible force. Her gaze scanned the sea of faces, searching for the unity she had resiliently fought to inspire. The community, whose diverse voices had long gone unheard, stood with her now, their silent support overlaid with hope for lasting change. "I'm here today not just as sheriff," she continued, slowly, with words carefully chosen to challenge the complacent and ignite the inspired, but as a citizen, a daughter, a mother, a friend, who believes in a just system for all, regardless of color, background, or walk of life. Applause erupted, scattered at first but quickly growing into a united chorus. Jasmine accepted it with grace, her posture never relaxing despite the growing support. She understood that this moment, potent and electric as it was only another step in a winding journey. One reporter pushed to the front, her signature red glasses perched precariously on her nose, a veteran of exposing injustice. "Sheriff Calloway, do you believe that Officer Collins' actions were racially motivated? And if so, what implications does this have for the department's training protocols?" Jasmine met the reporter's gaze squarely. The incident highlighted critical flaws in our current procedures, flaws that cannot and will not be ignored. "We are implementing mandatory racial bias training across the department immediately." Her declaration was met with a wave of murmurs, a perceptible shift in the atmosphere as her intentions reverberated through the audience. "And what about broader community relations?" another reporter shouted over the milling crowd. "How will this change impact the trust between law enforcement and the public?" Jasmine nodded, her response charged with a steady determination. "Rebuilding trust requires transparency, accountability, and engagement. I am committed to community meetings, open dialogues, and listening to the people this department serves. It's time for our policies and actions to reflect the diversity and ideals of this community." Her words painted a future not without challenges but with promise, a vision of reconstruction built upon accountability. As the focus of her message shifted from her own ordeal to the collective story, her leadership inspired action. The scene was not without tensions. Behind the media line, counter-protesters held signs decrying the changes she promised, their silent dissent adding complex layers to the narrative. But Jasmine stood resolute, undeterred by the discord. She imagined each antagonistic voice as a validation of the necessity of her cause. The press conference drew to a close, the questions gradually fading as sunlight continued to filter through, illuminating the courthouse steps and the figure of a sheriff who defied the status quo. As the last camera flashed, Jasmine envisioned the ripples of today's dialogue spreading across the community, instigating examination and demanding participation in systemic evolution. She stepped down from the podium, her mind already looking ahead to the next strategic steps required to nurture the seeds of change she had planted. Her allies awaited her, ready to move from rhetoric to action, from clamor to contours, eager to forge the contours of a legacy defined by inclusion and justice. Walking through the crowd, Jasmine exchanged nods and brief encouragements with familiar faces and strangers alike. The community stood with her, ready to support the path ahead, nurturing the narrative of unity over division. As the evening descended, the courthouse finally faded, leaving behind echoes of commitment echoing in the cooling air. A journey beckoned ahead, a commitment to ensuring that each new day marked progress away from the injustices of the past. Jasmine's stand today was not the end it seemed, rather a prelude to a composition yet to be written, a call for empowerment that she invited everyone to answer together. How will you contribute to Sheriff Jasmine's vision, spotlighted today yet requiring action in solidarity? Share your perspective and stay with us as this narrative unfolds toward equity and justice. The bright morning sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the community center's meeting hall. The building, typically a hub of quiet activity, now hummed with a sense of urgent purpose. Jasmine stood at the entrance, welcoming a steady stream of community members, faces familiar and new, each carrying stories etched with the deep lines of lived experience and the soft contours of hope. Inside, chairs were arranged in a circle, an intentional choice to foster openness and equality, a place where everyone, regardless of rank or history, could engage in conversations that demanded honesty and empathy. Posters lined the walls, adorned with images of past community milestones, juxtaposed against blank spaces eagerly awaiting new narratives of progress and unity. As the room filled, the low murmur of conversation grew into a steady symphony of voices, balancing excitement and caution. Jasmine felt the energy bubbling beneath the surface, a potent mixture of apprehension and anticipation that always accompanied change. Today wasn't just about dialogue, it was about building bridges, mending fractures too long ignored, and planting seeds for an inclusive future. Jasmine took her place in the circle, her heart swelling at the sight of the diverse tapestry of faces surrounding her. Among them were the young and old, activists and business leaders, longtime residents and recent arrivals. Their varied backgrounds, different as day and night, were united by a singular purpose: to create a justice system that was more reflective of those it served. Her eyes met those of Marcus Evans, a respected community organizer whose work in education and advocacy spanned decades. His presence here was a testament to the movement's growing solidarity, and his nod of approval emboldened Jasmine's resolve. She began the session with a simplicity that paved the way for sincere dialogue. "Thank you all for being here today," Jasmine started, her voice resonant with gratitude and resolve. "Your presence is a testament to our shared commitment to progress and justice. This meeting is not just about what I can do as your sheriff, but what we can achieve together." A ripple of agreement swept through the room, pockets of gentle murmurs acknowledging the depth of her words. This was a space born from shared frustration, but crafted into a platform for collaboration. A hand rose from across the circle, belonging to Cecilia Ramsey, a local teacher whose activism was rivaled only by her dedication to her students. "Sheriff Calloway," she began, determination asserting itself in her tone, "we're ready for change, but how do we ensure that the actions we take now don't become another forgotten initiative when the headlines fade?" Jasmine nodded, the question emblematic of the skepticism she understood all too well. "It's about creating sustainable frameworks and holding one another accountable," she replied, her gaze sweeping the room. "We need policies that aren't just reactive but proactive, developed alongside your input so they reflect our collective reality." Marcus joined in, his voice gruff, yet imbued with a thoughtful cadence. "We need systems in place for continuous dialogue between the community and law enforcement. Town halls, workshops, mentorship programs, pathways where voices aren't just heard but integrated into the solutions." Jasmine seized the momentum, her excitement growing as the vision transformed from plan to motion. "Exactly, Marcus. Together, with initiatives like these, we can reinforce community policing, rebuild trust, and reframe the narrative around our expectations and responsibilities to one another. The discussion flowed freely, ideas sparking like fireflies on a summer night, beautiful, fleeting, but carrying the potential for something enduring and transformative. Participants took turns sharing their perspectives, not shying away from past disappointments, but framing them as lessons within this evolving discourse. The conversations were punctuated by laughter and sometimes poignant silence, each a reminder of the community's resilience and creativity. Elder residents recounted tales of bygone eras, their wisdom enriching the tapestry of modern strategies. Youth interjected with technology-driven solutions, envisioning a future where connectivity offered awareness and insight. As the session continued, Jasmine observed the dynamics at play, her heart swelling with admiration for the bravery each participant summoned to contribute openly. Challenging conversations wove through the assembly, honest and necessary, chipping away at assumptions and revealing mutual goals and shared dreams. "No, we won't agree on everything today," Jasmine acknowledged as they arrived at a natural conclusion, the room's energy mellowing to a quiet resolve. "But we've begun this journey toward understanding and cooperation, and that's more powerful than standing alone." Applause strolled through the room, organic and sincere, an acknowledgement of efforts and hopes shared by all. Jasmine's gaze met those of countless allies, reflecting the light of shared purpose back to her, invigorating the promise within their ideas and actions. As the meeting disbanded and people filtered out into the sunlight, Jasmine lingered at the doorway, exchanging goodbyes, embracing the momentary lull in activity. The seeds of tonight's conversation had been sown, poised to break forth in time, a testament to a future crafted not by one, but by the many. Stepping back into the world outside, Jasmine felt the pulse of the community intertwine with her own, a sensation of unity forging the resilience to face trials yet to come. The narrative unfolding here was a collaboration, a movement extending far beyond headlines, a living story, swirling with the colors and voices of every soul committed to justice and peace. How will you support and engage with Sheriff Jasmine's vision for inspired change in law enforcement? Share your reflections and lend your voice in solidarity, for this journey is one we must forge together to achieve lasting impact. The room was dimly lit, a narrow space tucked away within the halls of power where only the decision-makers gathered. The long mahogany table stood at the center, surrounded by high-backed chairs filled with the county's political elite, each individual exuding a calculated authority. The air was thick with tension, a silent, simmering energy that cloaked the agenda in an oppressive shroud of tradition and hubris. Sheriff Jasmine Calloway was not present for this meeting, by design rather than circumstance. Behind these closed doors, discussions about her and, more importantly, the racial tensions exacerbated by recent events unfolded, guided by the vested interests of those both complicit in and indifferent to the sustained status quo. Deputy Mayor Alan Trask presided at the head of the table, his demeanor as polished as his reputation for maneuvering political theater with precision. His eyes flicked over the gathered officials, gauging their readiness to toe the line or deviate from the accepted narratives. "We're all aware of the recent disturbances," Trask began, his voice a calm yet commanding ripple through the gathering storm of opinions. "Sheriff Calloway's actions have sparked significant attention, bringing along challenges that we must address." Around the table, the murmurs began, a low drone of agreement mixed with dissent, each participant weighing their words like valuable currency. The conversations danced around solutions, strategies, and counters, avoiding the core of the issue with practiced ease. Councilmember Teresa Holmes, known for her progressive stance, leaned forward, her voice cutting clean through the verbal fog. "Sheriff Calloway is driving real change, Alan. We must respond to this community's demand for substantive reform, not simply manage perceptions." Trask's smile was thin, measured. "Reform is a noble goal, Teresa, he conceded, resting a hand on the table with a casual air that belied the tightening of his jaw. But we cannot rush into restructuring without considering the implications for our established system. Holmes didn't flinch, holding his gaze with steady determination. Ignoring urgency is no longer an option. The community is watching, and they're expecting more than the usual lip service. We owe them that much, at the very least. Tense silence followed, and in the distance, the hum of city life seeped through the walls, an ever-present reminder of the world beyond their insular debate. Trask considered her words, his mind a flurry of calculations, weighing the risk of antagonizing a public he could no longer placate with placid platitudes. We all agree the public relations issues are significant, but our approach must be balanced, he finally said, turning his attention once more to the room, offering a compromise shrouded in vagueness. Perhaps a committee can be established to explore specific reform initiatives within the sheriff's framework. Censure we align public demand with operational integrity. Holmes's eyes narrowed slightly. She picked up the slack in his suggestion. A committee could be a step forward if granted genuine authority and representation, but this cannot be another logistical delay. We need to act swiftly. From another corner, Councilman Doug Harris chimed in, his perspective pragmatic and skeptical. The outreach is crucial, but we must budget accordingly. We need deliberations to include fiscal responsibilities considering these proposals. Trask nodded thoughtfully, his mind quick to assimilate the divergent viewpoints, aiming to craft a consensus without truly surrendering control. We'll allocate resources to ensure the committee can deliver actionable insights within the time frame, he directed, manipulating the conversation back toward controllable increments. As the dialogue progressed, it became evident the Assembly's primary agenda was mitigating the discomfort caused by Jasmine's initiatives, rather than wholeheartedly embracing the sea change she represented. Yet they were now navigating a landscape forever altered by her leadership, the old pathways obstructed by the scrutinizers of change. Beneath the surface, agreements began to crystallize, some rooted in sincere progress, others merely in self-preservation. But the ground had shifted, shaken by Sheriff Calloway's courageous confrontation of systemic failings, the reverberations of her actions now echoing through the marbled halls of power. The meeting concluded, the officials slowly dispersing, enveloped once more in their roles as gatekeepers of tradition and stewards of barely emerging transformation. Outside, they slipped back into the rhythm of public life, their faces composed with the polished veneer of officials charged with maintaining the peace. Amidst the undercurrents of private maneuvering, an undeniable truth tethered them to the present shift. Jasmine Calloway had not just challenged the boundaries of power and perception, she was transforming them, guiding the narrative through the strength of community-supported change. And though not all were aligned with her, none could ignore the ripple of difference she was beginning to make. For the first time, the path forward shimmered with the possibility of honest discourse, a chance to craft a coalition driven by integrity, justice, and representation. This new tableau demanded active participation, a call echoed beyond the confines of council meetings, a summons to enact the values espoused by a society yearning for equity and inclusion. How will we engage with the hidden dialogues shaping our communities? Your voice matters. Your actions even more so. Join us in this call to foster transparency and support Sheriff Jasmine's vision. Together, let's build a future grounded in mutual respect and shared strength. Jasmine sat quietly in her modest living room, a rare moment of solitude wrapping around her like a well-worn quilt. The room was filled with soft lamplight, illuminating the photographs that lined the walls. Snapshots of family and friends, moments of joy and resilience captured over the years. She sipped her tea, the warmth seeping into her hands, as she allowed herself to drift back to a time when the world had seemed both simpler and infinitely more daunting. Her childhood had been spent in the heart of the city, a vibrant neighborhood with streets alive with color and character. Jasmine's grandmother, Ruth Calloway, had been the cornerstone of their world, a matriarch whose wisdom was revered, whose strength was a beacon against the storms of racial injustice that swept through their lives like unchecked tempests. Ruth was a storyteller, weaving the past into the present with every word, her voice a symphony of lessons learned and dreams deferred. It was she who instilled in Jasmine the belief that justice was not merely an aspiration, but an obligation, an inheritance handed down through generations, scarred by prejudice, but unbowed by its cruelty. Jasmine remembered weekend afternoons on the porch, the sun casting lazy patterns across the wooden floorboards, as her grandmother recounted tales of their ancestors, men and women who had fought with quiet dignity against the tides of segregation and systemic inequality. They were unsung heroes, their names absent from history books, but etched into the foundation of the community that had flourished against the odds. "There's power in knowing where you come from, Jasmine," Ruth would say, her eyes twinkling with a profound knowing. "Never forget the shoulders you stand on, but always look forward." The lessons took root, guiding Jasmine through the trials of adolescence and young adulthood. As a teenager, she had faced her own battles. Racial slurs scrawled on school lockers, teachers who ignored her potential in favor of their low expectations, friends arrested simply for existing while black. Each affront was a catalyst, igniting a fierce determination within her heart. Jasmine learned early on that the world would not hand her respect or equality. She would have to claim them herself, armed with the tools passed down from her grandmother, tools of resilience, courage, and an unwavering belief in the transformative power of justice. Her decision to pursue a career in law enforcement had once seemed incongruous, a choice that bewildered those who knew her history. Yet, for Jasmine, it was a calling, a path to effect change from within a system that thrived on maintaining order, yet too often perpetuated disorder in marginalized communities. She remembered the look on her grandmother's face when she announced her career choice, a mixture of pride and concern etched in Ruth's features. "It won't be easy," Ruth had warned, her voice gentle yet firm, the echoes of a life lived under scrutiny and defiance. "They won't welcome you with open arms, Jasmine, but if anyone can make a difference, it's you." Those words resounded in her now, an anthem of hope that rang through the corridors of time, resonating with the determination and defiance of her ancestors. It was a legacy she embraced and honored in every step she took as sheriff, every decision challenged by the specter of entrenched biases. Jasmine rose from her seat, setting her cup aside, her gaze drawn to the portrait of Ruth Calloway adorning the mantelpiece. The older woman's face, captured in a moment of serene contemplation, radiated with the contentment of a life well lived, a reminder of the sacrifices that paved the way for Jasmine's own journey towards justice. "It's not over yet, Grandma," Jasmine whispered to the photograph, her voice a soft vow carried through the silence. "We've come so far, and there's still so much to do, but I promise I'll keep fighting for you, for us." As she crossed the room, a gentle knock at the door brought her back to the present. Jasmine opened it to find her daughter, Michaela, poised on the other side, a vibrant young woman whose eyes sparkled with the same defiant strength that defined her lineage. "Ready for our walk?" Michaela asked with a smile, breaking the solemnity with the ease born of familiarity and love. "Always," Jasmine replied, closing the door behind them as they stepped into the night together. The air was crisp and clear, the stars twinkling like promises in the vast tapestry above, a universe that had borne witness to both the triumphs and tribulations of their family, guiding them onward. Together, they walked the familiar streets, Jasmine's mind a flurry of history, commitment, and future potential. With each footfall, she was reminded of the people whose lives intertwined with hers, creating a tapestry of unity and progress, a community that held her accountable and inspired her to continue the fight. The walk stretched long into the evening, their conversation weaving seamlessly between the present challenges and dreams for what lay ahead. Bridges, mended and new, and the promise of justice unfettered by prejudice awaited them, a story unfolding, written in the indelible ink of courage compassion, and above all, hope. Reflecting on Jasmine's journey and legacy, how do you see yourself contributing to a community united in purpose and justice? Share your thoughts and stay with us as this ongoing narrative shapes a shared future. Under the soft glow of the streetlights, Jasmine and her daughter Michaela continued their stroll, the conversation flowing with ease and warmth tinged with the weight of their shared history. Michaela was a fierce spirit, her youthful exuberance tempered by a wisdom beyond her years. She was not just Jasmine's daughter, but her ally, her confidant in navigating the many complexities of the world they were both striving to change. As they rounded a corner, the familiar figure of Officer Miguel Torres shifted into view, his silhouette framed against the oak trees lining the sidewalk. Jasmine felt a twinge of anticipation mixed with cautious optimism. Miguel was one of her officers, a diligent and steady presence in the precinct, but more importantly, he was a man torn between loyalties, between the institution he served and the justice he believed in. "Miguel!" Jasmine called out, her voice carrying through the cool evening air with a note of genuine welcome and a hint of inquiry. Miguel turned, his expression brightening at the sight of them. He approached with an ease that had developed over late-night shifts and shared confidences, a friendship born from the understanding of their roles within the crucible of law enforcement. "Sheriff Michele?" Miguel greeted, nodding to each in turn. His demeanor was relaxed, but the undercurrent of their recent challenges tied them together more tightly than uniforms or titles ever could. "How's the beat tonight?" Jasmine asked, slipping seamlessly into her role as both mentor and friend. Miguel shrugged, a wry smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Quiet, thankfully. Gives me a chance to think." All three stopped to look out over the humble park ahead. The moon bathed it in a serene glow, transforming familiar paths into silver thread tapestries. For a moment, their shared silence spoke louder than any words, a testament to the solidarity between them as they stood on the precipice of change. "I've been reflecting a lot since the hearing," Miguel began, his voice steady, though edged with contemplation. "The things you said, Jasmine, they resonated, not just with me, but with a lot of the guys." Michaela watched keenly, her curiosity piqued by the forthrightness of Miguel's words. There was a rawness to them, a commitment that reached deeper than the procedural rhythms of their jobs. Jasmine allowed herself a small smile, a momentary glimpse of the gratitude she felt for having allies like Miguel within the force. "It's a complicated time, Miguel, but knowing there are officers who understand the importance of reform makes all the difference." Miguel nodded, his resolve forming in the cool night air. "I've been thinking about what you said, about us needing to be part of the solution rather than the problem. I'm ready to help bridge that gap, whatever it takes." His words hung in the air, a bridge not yet crossed, but built on the solid foundations of shared goals and individual courage. Jasmine knew the challenge ahead would test them both, measure their integrity against the heavy tide of resistance from those entrenched in the old ways. Michaela chimed in, her youthful enthusiasm undeterred by the weighty topic at hand. "It's about time, Mr. Torres. The younger officers listen to you. They'll follow your lead." Miguel chuckled, the sound light but underscored with a seriousness that came from experience. "Let's hope so, Michaela. We could use some forward momentum." The camaraderie between them felt tangible, an unspoken pact to forge ahead despite uncertainties. It was a comfort infused with determination, a testament to Jasmine's influence, a reflection of her ability to inspire those around her to rise to the occasion. "Whatever change we wish to see," Jasmine said softly, her words echoing the sentiment shared by all, "we must embody it fully. Every encounter, every decision, it has to reflect the commitment we're making together." Miguel extended his hand, a gesture both simple and profound. Jasmine accepted it, their handshake a seal to the promise of unity against the adversity they were sure to face. Michaela watched this exchange with admiration, the sight of her mother leading not just by authority, but with authentic relationship building, anchoring her own burgeoning beliefs. "Thank you, Miguel," Jasmine said, sincerity lending weight to her gratitude. "We're going to make a difference, one way or another." They resumed their walk together, guided by the quiet strength of the shared conviction that illuminated their path. The voices of those who had come before seemed to whisper encouragement in the gentle rustling of the wind, an unseen yet unfailing chorus urging them forward. As their path wound through the heart of the neighborhood, Jasmine knew their journey was far from over, but she also knew she was not alone. Allies like Miguel, supporters like Michaela, and the community's unwavering spirit were the true lifeblood of this movement toward a better, more equitable future. Beneath the vast stretch of starlit sky, the evolving friendship between Jasmine and Miguel pulsed with potential and promise, a microcosm of the broader hope for justice and reform. This was their story, a chapter in the relentless pursuit of justice, where change was not just possible, but inevitable. Could you find yourself part of such a movement? Reflect upon your own capacity for allyship and action, and share your thoughts as we delve deeper into the journey for justice. The room buzzed with nervous energy, a palpable mix of expectation and hope filling the air. Jasmine stood near the entrance of the community center, where the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the tang of determination. Chairs were arranged in concentric circles, the room designed to accommodate multiple perspectives and facilitate open dialogue. The initiative had taken shape almost organically, inspired by the unwavering spirit of the community and fueled by the fire ignited from the recent crises. This was the first official gathering of local leaders and activists coming together to discuss concrete policy changes, a new alliance poised to confront long-standing inefficiencies and injustices in law enforcement. Jasmine surveyed the room, filled with individuals whose experiences ranged from seasoned advocacy to newfound activism. Faces were earnest, expressions a blend of resolve and vulnerability. Many had faced the harsh realities of systemic injustice firsthand. Others arrived with expertise and an eagerness to contribute meaningfully to the cause. Among those present was Elena Foxton, an environmental lawyer with a penchant for grassroots mobilization. Her infectious enthusiasm was tempered by keen strategic insight, a blend that had proven crucial in previous movements. She approached Jasmine with an assured stride, binder in hand, ready to get to work. "Sheriff Calloway," Elena greeted warmly, her eyes alight with purpose. "It's incredible to see so many willing to put in the work for real change." Jasmine nodded, her heart buoyed by the gathering sea of intent. "It's time we transform advocacy into actionable steps. Thank you for being part of this, Elena." She moved further into the room, exchanging nods and brief conversations with attendees. Each interaction reinforced the urgency and potential of this collective endeavor. Community elders shared knowing glances, having witnessed similar attempts in the past, yet they remained cautiously optimistic, recognizing the unprecedented momentum now driving the initiative. As the meeting began, Jasmine took her place at the center, a position both symbolic and literal, underscoring her role as a connector, a leader whose strength lay in listening as much as in directing. "We're here because we all believe change is not just necessary but overdue," she began, her voice calm yet powerful, cutting through the ambient noise with clarity. "Today, we set the groundwork for policies that reflect fairness, accountability, and the diverse fabric of our community." Antonio Ramirez, a youth advocate, spoke up, his voice firm with commitment. "We need policies that address the root causes of criminalization, especially how it affects young people. Schools should nurture potential, not serve as pipelines to incarceration." His words resonated through the room, a visible ripple of agreement shaping the collective consciousness. Heads nodded as others leaned in to add their insights, enriching the discourse with multifaceted perspectives. Elena raised a hand, signaling her intention to contribute. "Integrating environmental justice into our framework could address disparities in communities of color. Pollution, lack of resources, inadequate infrastructure, they all feed into larger systemic inequality." Jasmine acknowledged the point, the endless interconnected strands of justice becoming increasingly apparent. "We must prioritize cross-sectional alliances," she asserted. "Together, tackling education reform, environmental justice, and law enforcement challenges enhances our capacity to create sustainable change. The conversation gained momentum, blossoming into vibrant discussions that expanded beyond law enforcement policy. Participants suggested inclusive zoning laws, healthcare access, mental health support, all woven into an intricate tapestry, the narrative of a holistic approach to community healing. Throughout the dialogue, Jasmine remained at the heart of the exchange, facilitating when necessary, allowing voices to rise and merge in symphonic harmony. Each contribution was a testament to the power of community, a kaleidoscope of ideas that intersected to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Quality time was dedicated to crafting immediate objectives, ensuring that theory translated into practice. Working groups formed, each tasked with particular focuses such as police accountability, educational outreach, and legislative advocacy. The structure provided the necessary scaffolding to support the burgeoning alliance. As the session drew to a close, a shared sense of accomplishment and anticipation lingered in the air. Jasmine felt the weight of responsibility, but also the expansive possibility that lay ahead, a path not navigated alone, but with a coalition fortified by shared dreams and aspiration. "We've accomplished a lot today," Jasmine said, closing the meeting. "This is the first step, but not the last. Our strength lies in our unity. Together, we are an unstoppable force for change." Applause erupted, a thunderous affirmation of the journey they embarked upon. Jasmine's heart swelled with pride, each face in the room a beacon of hope and fortitude in the landscape of justice reform. As participants began to disperse, Jasmine found herself surrounded by a chorus of encouragement and support. The community was no longer a disparate collection of individuals, but a coherent, pulsating force, committed to reshaping their world from within. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow across the skyline, a metaphor for new beginnings and the dawn of a more equitable tomorrow. Wrapped in this communal embrace, Jasmine knew that the substance of their commitment would transcend beyond this room, interwoven into the very fabric of the community they cherished. What part are you inspired to play in this unfolding narrative? Share your reflections and join this transformative journey, geared towards justice, community, and change. The conference room was a stark contrast to the vibrant community gathering from the previous day. Carpeted floors and muted walls enclosed the space. Its glass windows showed an indifferent cityscape outside, a world disconnected from the fraught realities within. At the head of the room stood the tribunal panel, their expressions a mixture of stoic professionalism and the tension inherent to impending judgment. Officer Ryan Collins sat at the center of attention, his gaze fixed intently on the table before him. Around him, the room was filled with key stakeholders from the police department, union representatives, and a select few community advocates. Jasmine Calloway occupied a seat near the front, her presence a constant reminder of the incident that had brought them all here, a catalyst forcing the department to confront its systemic flaws. The tribunal members, stern and focused, presided with an air of officialdom, each one tasked with unraveling the complexities surrounding the actions of Officer Collins. The proceedings began with the recitation of events, each fact weighed with the precision of a jeweler, examining the facets of a rare gem, seeking clarity in a situation muddied by bias and oversight. Officer Collins took the stand, his demeanor subdued. The bravado of their initial encounter had long faded, replaced by a weathered understanding of the consequences his actions had set into motion. He spoke slowly, a rehearsed narrative designed to cast his actions in a believable light, the result of careful preparation by his legal counsel. "My actions that night were a misunderstanding," Collins stated, his eyes finally lifting to meet those of the panel members. "Protocol dictated my response, but I realize now the prejudice underlying those protocols. Sheriff Calloway should never have been treated the way she was." A murmur rippled through the room, a mix of skepticism and tentative acknowledgement. His admission, while partially owning responsibility, was wrapped in the protective layer of procedural error, shared by countless others who had faced similar scrutiny before. Jasmine remained silent, her focus unwavering as she absorbed each word, gauging its sincerity. The room shifted as the prosecution commenced its questioning, the lead attorney leaning forward with incisive intent. "Officer Collins," she began, "do you honestly believe racial bias played no role in your decision-making that evening?" Collins hesitated, a crack rippling through the veneer of his testimony. "There's no excuse for what happened," he said finally, the admission cracking through the pretense of ignorance like sunlight through a murky glass. "I acted on assumptions I didn't even know I held, and for that I'm deeply sorry." Jasmine watched as the layers peeled away, exposing the raw heart of the issue, the failure of training, the absence of accountability, the silent perpetuation of a toxic culture that corrupted more than just Collins. It was a sad reflection of an institution struggling to align itself with the principles it swore to protect and serve. The questioning continued, prodding at inconsistencies, drawing out reluctant acknowledgments of complacency, each creating fissures in the defenses long held by the department. Director Sarah Hargrove, head of internal affairs and a formidable figure within the ranks, examined the broader implications looming over this inquiry. Her questions were sharp, each designed to expose the broader failures that enabled such encounters. "How do we ensure this doesn't happen again, Officer Collins?" she demanded, her tone both instructive and implicitly critical. "This is not just about individual failure, but a systemic one." The silence following her words was profound, a shared acknowledgement of shared culpability. Collins glanced toward Jasmine, the quiet plea in his eyes meeting her steady, resolute gaze. It was a moment suspended between them, an unspoken opportunity for redemption in the face of wrongdoing. "I'm committed to change," Collins replied, his voice gaining a fragile strength, "to help redefine our methods, participate in the new training initiatives, whatever it takes." A small nod from Jasmine communicated silent acknowledgement, an understanding that redemption lay not in words alone, but in actions yet to unfold. The tribunal continued their deliberation, work groups, subcommittees, labyrinthine processes designed to navigate the bureaucratic maze of reform. Yet amid these proceedings, a seed of possibility took root, the chance to rewrite the future, to build a department reflective of the community's diverse reality and not just the echoes of an outdated past. The hearing concluded, formalities observed, but hope lingered in the charged aftermath, waiting to be cultivated by those who dared to act. Jasmine knew this was just a battle in a larger campaign, a step forward on a path fraught with resistance and reluctance. As the room emptied, Officer Collins approached, his expression that of quiet determination painted with the shadow of lessons hard learned. He extended a hand, hesitant yet open. "Sheriff Calloway," he said, his voice a blend of gratitude and sober resolve, "thank you for holding me accountable. I mean it when I say I want to help change things." Jasmine considered him for a moment, then shook his hand, the gesture not just of forgiveness, but of acknowledgement. "We'll see what you do with this chance," she replied as they settled back into a new, uneasy camaraderie, both wary and hopeful. Jasmine exited the room, stepping into the waning light of the afternoon. The air tasted different, still tinged with the tension of reality, but infused with the faint fragrance of potential transformation. Her journey was far from over, but the commitment to justice and reform continued to solidify with each step. Will you join in Jasmine's vision for justice, holding systems accountable as we champion change? Your voice can amplify this message. Share your thoughts as we drive forward in this narrative committed to reform and reconciliation. Together we stand here, rewriting our future. Her words hung in the air like a promise, a binding commitment between herself and those gathered, an oath woven from shared struggles and the resilient spirit of hope. She paused, allowing the echo to settle before continuing, drawing strength from the crowd's palpable solidarity. "We've come a long way, and we've much farther to go. Our work doesn't end with tribunals or hearings. It begins there. We must embody the change we want to see, hold each other accountable, and push for policies that reflect our shared values. In the audience, heads nodded in agreement, individuals finding solace and strength in one another's presence. It was a powerful sight, a community bound not by conformity, but by a shared stake in the justice they pursued. Jasmine's heart swelled as she scanned the diverse sea of faces before her, each person a crucial thread in the complex tapestry of change. Among them was Elena Foxton, whose advocacy had inspired many in the crowd to consider the interconnectedness of justice in its many forms. Next to her stood Miguel Torres, his expression a mixture of humility and determined resolve, a man stepping into the light, emerging from the shadows of past missteps. Tonight, we rally not just for us, but for future generations who deserve a justice system founded on fairness and equality, a system that protects and serves, without prejudice or bias. Jasmine's words rang out clearly, a clarion call to the hearts beating in time with the movement she helped ignite. The crowd responded, their applause rolling like a wave across the square, filling the space between bricks and mortar with a sound that transcended any one rally, any single moment. It was the sound of empowerment, amplified by unity and shared vision. Jasmine continued, encouraging those present to channel their passion into action, to engage in town meetings, support legislative reforms, and never let the flame of hope waver, even in the harshest winds of opposition. As she spoke, she was met with cheers and cries of support, a chorus of voices committed to bridging the chasm between systemic inertia and active change. Dialogue turned to collective demand, actions transformed into momentum, a testament to the power of communal action in its most transformative form. As the rally surged on, Jasmine descended from the stage, her heart brimming with gratitude and determination. She mingled with the crowd, accepting words of encouragement, answering questions, and sharing her vision for the path forward. A labyrinth of opportunity and obligation, where everyone had a part to play. Through the chaos, she caught sight of Michaela, who had slipped seamlessly into the crowd's tapestry, her young face alight with hope. Jasmine drew her daughter into a warm embrace, feeling the strength and certainty only such love could provide. "Mom, this is incredible," Michaela said, looking up at her with eyes bright with inspiration. "You're really making a difference." "Not just me, sweetheart," Jasmine replied, feeling the weight of her daughter's words blend with the collective energy around them. "We're all part of this." The rally continued late into the night, each speech, each cheer, a radiant ember keeping the fire alive, casting light upon paths yet illuminated but waiting to be traveled. Jasmine left the square with a renewed sense of purpose, a clear vision ever forward. One where injustice was slowly dismantled by the inexorable force of solidarity, empathy, and action born from shared dreams. As the city settled into stillness, the legacy of that night imprinted itself onto the community's beating heart, an untold story finally written with the ink of determination and the promise of tomorrow. Are you ready to add your voice to this call for justice? Let us know how you plan to contribute to such movements and how this story inspires you to act. The rally had been a spontaneous combustion of spirit, a catalyst igniting when the community learned of the tribunal's conclusions. Word spread like wildfire, carried on the backs of social media posts, whispered conversations, and fervent phone calls. It was a call to action, a visceral response to the inertia of bureaucratic processes, setting the town square ablaze with a collective demand for change. The square was alive with bodies pressed shoulder to shoulder, faces alight with determination as the twilight sky dipped into hues of indigo and burnt orange. Jasmine stood at the edge, scanning the crowd, a sea of familiar faces and fresh ones, unified in purpose. Signs bobbed above heads, emblazoned with messages calling for justice and reform, each poster a testament to the shared vision that had drawn them together. A makeshift stage had been erected at the center, atop which a diverse group of speakers had already begun sharing stories of resilience and hope, of anger and possibility. Jasmine listened intently as a local activist recounted a harrowing encounter with law enforcement, his voice unwavering as he transformed personal pain into powerful advocacy. "I stand here today," he declared, voice resonating over the assembly, "not just for myself, but for every person who has been marginalized and overlooked. We demand a system that sees us, hears us, and serves us." The crowd erupted in applause, a thunderous outpouring that reverberated off the walls of the surrounding buildings. Jasmine knew her moment was near. Her presence tonight was not just as sheriff, but as a member of the community, standing on the shared foundation of desire for true reform. She felt the energy, a living force that electrified the air and underscored the urgency of her purpose. Taking the stage, she was greeted by a wave of anticipation, a tapestry of eyes reflecting mutual trust and challenged expectations. The microphone felt cool in her hands, grounding her as she stood poised to speak. "I am here tonight," Jasmine began, her voice amplified over the hushed crowd, "because I believe in each and every one of you. I believe in our power to transform our community into one where justice is not just a word, but a way of life." As dawn broke over the city, its golden light casting long shadows across the streets, the echoes of last night's rally still resonated in hearts and minds. For Jasmine, the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next step in the transformation she was determined to see through. The call came in early, before the city had fully stirred from its slumber. A simple request in a strained voice, loaded with unspoken tension. The caller, a young activist named Sarah, hinted at an idea that had taken root, murmured among the groups dispersing from the rally's fervor. "A silent protest," she said, "to visualize the weight of systemic racism and the collective commitment to change." Jasmine listened intently, recognizing the power in silence when words could no longer suffice. She agreed to support the initiative, knowing full well the risks and rewards such an endeavor carried. She understood silence could transcend spoken language, conveying a message deeper and more profound when orchestrated from unity and intent. By mid-morning, the square where they'd rallied was once again a hub of activity, though the energy this time was different, calmer, yet charged with deep resolve. Participants began gathering, drawn by the whisper of a shared purpose, each taking their place along a path charted with quiet intention. Jasmine joined them, carefully taking her position among those who arrived early. Her uniform was left behind. Today, she stood not as the sheriff, but as another voice, another body, willing to reinforce a vital message. Plan was succinct. For a full 15 minutes they would stand in absolute silence, occupying the vibrant heart of the city, a living monument to the chapters of history that demanded acknowledgement and change. The clock struck 12, and together they took a collective breath, then slipped into silence. The square transformed into a tapestry of stillness, each participant a vital thread woven into a narrative unsaid but understood. The effect was immediate and undeniable. What began as a whisper of an idea now stretched across the square, a hush settling like soft snowfall, enveloping the senses, redirecting attention from the everyday bustle to the quiet insistence of the protest. Pedestrians paused, their routines interrupted by this unexpected convergence of silence. Office workers halted their hurried paths to nearby cafes, their curiosity piqued by the absence of sound in such a place designed for the hum of activity. Drivers at adjacent intersections paused, turning off car engines to catch the silent symphony playing out before them. Jasmine felt the weight of the moment press close, an almost tangible presence that reminded her of the power each person shared in their solitude and collectively as a movement. The silence amplified the reality of lives lived under the radar and injustice endured often unspoken, a stark contrast to her official role. Her sworn duty as an arbiter of justice. Michaela joined her, the young girl holding her mother's hand in the profound stillness, both a connection and a promise. In this shared silence, layered histories and future aspirations for justice intertwined, forming an invisible yet unbreakable bond of intent. For those precious minutes, the world slowed to match their heartbeat. Each second ticked by, a series of breaths, steady and resolved. In the quiet shadow of the skyscrapers, their stand echoed louder than any chant, more impactful than chants or slogans. It acknowledged suffering that had become all too common, demanding a new narrative forged from empathy and equity. And then it was over. The clock struck 12:15, the collective exhalation softly rippling through the participants. Eyes meeting eyes, nods exchanged. A profound respect shared, though few words uttered. The world resumed its pace, but not without sensing the change that had simmered just below its surface. Jasmine lingered in the square, watching as conversations slowly resumed around her. Her own thoughts cocooned in the echoes of the silence. The protest was a testament not just to what could be achieved when voices were raised, but when unity embodied the quiet defiance against systemic shortcomings. In this silence, progress had taken another step forward, not a giant leap, but a deliberate, measured advancement towards the inclusive community they all aspired to create. Jasmine stood up, her heart full with the shared significance of the experience. Another chapter had been etched in their collective fight, a page in the book of reform she was relentlessly determined to write. Each step, each breath, and each moment was another brick laid in the house of justice she envisioned, resonating with those who dared to dream alongside her. With renewed resolve, Jasmine left the square, her mind already navigating the unfolding journey ahead. Quiet strength and collective will had surfaced today, encouraging further dialogue and actions. The silence had echoed, and its message was one of unmistakable change. Would you stand in solidarity through silence? How does this inspire your own journey towards justice, equality, and unity? Share your reflections and let's build this narrative together, united in purpose and hope. The cold glow of the streetlights reflected off the pavement, casting long shadows as Officer Ryan Collins walked alone, his thoughts a tangled web of guilt and introspection. The weight of recent events pressed down on him with every step, a constant reminder of his actions that had sparked a spiral of consequences and hard-won awareness. He found himself at the edge of the city's riverwalk, its serene waters a stark contrast to the turmoil churning within. It was here that he often sought solitude, these quiet nights offering a refuge from the chaos of his duties. But tonight, the silence pressed against him with the force of his own conscience, demanding attention, demanding action. His mind revisited the faces he encountered during the hearing. Jasmine's unwavering conviction and the community's commitment to reform. They lingered in his thoughts, like ghosts of the values he'd sworn to uphold but had faltered in recognizing. The clarity of those moments demanded introspection he could no longer ignore. Sitting on a bench overlooking the water, Ryan breathed in the crisp air, allowing the stillness of the night to wash over him. It was time for a reckoning, not only with those he had wronged, but also with himself, his beliefs, and his purpose within a system that was as flawed as the individual biases it harbored. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his cell phone, hesitating for a heartbeat before dialing a familiar number. It rang twice before a voice answered, warm and tinged with concern. "Ryan, it's late. Is everything all right?" It was his wife, Anna, whose patient strength had been his anchor throughout this ordeal. Her understanding had been a balm against the rawness of self-discovery, an unwavering presence during the internal storm. "Yeah, I'm okay," Ryan replied, though the tightness in his voice suggested otherwise. I needed to talk, clear my head." Anna listened, her empathy a silent encouragement. "I'm here," she said softly. "Whatever you're feeling, just let it out. We can work through it." Ryan exhaled, allowing the floodgates to open. "I've been replaying that night over and over again, my decisions, everything. Seeing Jasmine's face, knowing what I did, what I almost did." He trailed off, his voice caught in the web of emotion. Anna's response was immediate, soothing. "You recognized your mistake, Ryan. That's no small thing. But acknowledging it is just the beginning." "I want to do more than just acknowledge," he admitted. the words forming a promise to himself as well as to her. I need to make it right, somehow. Get involved, help with the reform. Her pause signaled contemplation before speaking. You're brave for facing this. It takes courage to change, but you have to start somewhere. How will you be different now? Ryan gazed out at the darkened river, considering her question carefully. I started by asking Jasmine for a chance to help, to be part of the change rather than resisting it, he said finally. I meant it when I told her I wanted to be involved. I need to rebuild brick by brick. Anna's voice was gentle, tinged with encouragement. Then that's exactly what you'll do, Ryan. You're not defined by one moment, and it's never too late to redirect your course. Their conversation continued, a flow of ideas and solutions, building a bridge between remorse and the proactive path forward. Each suggestion, each reflection brought Ryan closer to the clarity he sought, a balanced approach reconciling his responsibilities with his renewed intent. As the night deepened, he felt a renewed sense of purpose take root, fragile yet firm, an internal compass guiding him toward constructive actions, both as an officer and as a man determined to dismantle his own prejudices while helping to reforge the institution he served. Ryan was resolved to contribute at local initiatives, work directly with community leaders, participate in revamped training programs addressing bias and accountability. He knew these were small gestures in a vast sea of necessity, yet together they formed waves of meaningful change. Their conversation wound down, Anna's words of encouragement resonating within him as he lingered beneath the starlit sky, a silent witness to his newfound pledge. Ryan's actions that night had sparked a journey to justice and healing, a pathway lit by those brave enough to confront their missteps and embrace the opportunity for redemption. As he finally rose to leave the Riverwalk, his heart lighter with determination, Ryan knew the future was not yet written. His journey would continue, guided by reflection, accountability, and the promise of genuine transformation. The river flowed onward, its melody a testament to time, unyielding yet forgiving, much like the justice system he now committed to, invigorating with compassionate reform. With renewed clarity, Ryan stepped forward, intent on proving that redemption is not just possible, but necessary, a truth calling for action beyond the edges of darkness. How will you contribute to turning the tide toward justice and reconciliation? Share your voice in this journey as we explore paths toward empathy, understanding, and lasting change. Under the dim amber lights of a late-night diner, a clandestine meeting unfolded that threatened to undermine the very reforms Jasmine was working tirelessly to implement. The establishment was almost vacant, save for a few late-night patrons engrossed in their own worlds of caffeine and solitude. Near the back, at a booth secluded by shadows, Deputy Mayor Alan Trask and a man known only as Jenkins leaned close over black coffee and clandestine agendas. Jenkins was a lobbyist with a reputation for smooth negotiations and backdoor dealings that lined the pockets of those in power. His sinewy frame and hawk-like eyes betrayed a cunning intellect and a penchant for maneuvering through the dense jungle of politics without leaving traces of his passage. The gentle clatter of dishes and muffled conversations provided a subtle cloak for their dialogue, an exchange that danced between murmured promises and unspoken threat. The situation is volatile, Alan, Jenkins began, his voice barely rising above a whisper. Sheriff Calloway's reforms are gaining traction, and that's bad news for our current arrangements. We need stability, not upheaval. Trask sipped his coffee, contemplating Jenkins' words. The sheriff's growing influence was a thorn in his side, challenging the establishment in ways that threatened to unravel the control meticulously maintained by those in power. The pressure was mounting, and Jenkins' presence signaled the need for a decisive course correction before the balance tipped irrevocably. I agree things are getting out of hand, Trask admitted, his fingers tapping a silent rhythm against the tabletop, a subconscious indicator of his unease. But we need to be careful how we approach this. Sheriff Calloway isn't someone you easily sidestep. Jenkins leaned back, a smirk settling on his lips as though he had already considered every possible outcome. We don't sidestep Alan, we redirect, influence her environment, leverage allies, make things so challenging that she can't make unilateral decisions. Trask rubbed his chin, a flicker of intrigue sparking in his eyes. What are you proposing? There are ways to apply pressure without leaving a mark, Jenkins explained conspiratorially. Increased scrutiny, budget reassessments, and regulatory hurdles. Small yet effective means to contain her influence, and we have our connections to ensure those hurdles appear legitimate. Seems risky, Trask countered, though the appeal of regaining control in a world rapidly shifting did not escape his attention, but also incredibly beneficial should it succeed. Jenkins' smile broadened, a cat-like assurance creeping into his expression. Precisely. The goal isn't to dismantle her entirely. That would be too overt. It's to slow her down, make her reconsider her approach. Their discussion continued, weaving through plans intricately designed to stifle Jasmine's momentum while maintaining an air of plausible deniability. Each plotted move was a marker on a chessboard, unseen but calculated to checkmate the unwary. Yet unknown to them, fate had a different design. A young waitress, Leah, who quietly served them refills and replenished their plates with practiced efficiency, listened with growing unease. She was an observer by necessity, not by choice, yet she understood the weight of secrets whispered in dim light, the implicit danger to a community striving for justice. As their meeting wound to a close, Trask and Jenkins parted ways, slipping into the obscurity of night, leaving behind the tangled web of their intentions drawn tightly around the fledgling hope of reform. Leah watched their departure, her heart a restless melding of fear and resolve. She had heard enough. What she did next could alter the course of events before realizing their full destructive potential. Her choice was clear, yet fraught with risk-woven tapestry of danger and duty that demanded action beyond the safety of silence. Leah moved swiftly, hitting the table with calm efficiency while her mind raced with determination. She owed it to her community, to Jasmine's leadership, to share what she had overheard. With a heart pounding like a drum, she remembered a friend connected through a local activist group, someone trustworthy, capable of relaying the information further with discretion. Under the cover of darkness, Leah made her way to the nearest payphone, feeding it a coin with trembling hands. She spoke quickly, urgency building in her tone as she recounted what she had witnessed. Her friend listened, understanding the gravity of what Leah imparted, promising prompt action. The information sliding quickly through the network poised to defend Jasmine's cause. The night stretched on, a canvas of uncertainty painted by the actions of the few affecting the many. Yet amid shadows teeming with intrigue, Leah's courage sparked a countercurrent, igniting a new beacon of possibility against the tide of clandestine manipulation. In the quiet sanctity of the diner, now wrapped in stillness, one truth became self-evident. The fight for justice was far from over, but as long as there were those willing to stand against the shadows, the light would never truly fade. What will you do when faced with the choice between comfort and courage? Share your thoughts as we continue to uncover the complexities of justice and unity in this unfolding narrative. The brisk morning air carried with it a sense of renewal as Jasmine sat at her desk, surrounded by files and documents that chronicled the evolution of their city's justice system. Outside her window, the city buzzed with life, unaware of the layered machinations brewing unseen by many. The previous evening's revelations had given Jasmine a new resolve, a sharpened focus on the reform that was essential yet insidiously threatened. Today marked the first gathering of the new Reform Committee, a coalition crafted from the fabric of resistance and purpose. The room was modest, but filled with potential, a microcosm of the larger struggle that pulsed beneath the surface of daily life. People began to filter in, their diversity a testament to the community's commitment to transformation. They represented a cross-section of the city activists, civic leaders, police officers, educators, each person a vital strand in the tapestry of change. Jasmine greeted each member with a warm smile and firm handshake, ensuring they felt the weight of their collective significance. Among them was Elena Foxton, her environmental law expertise a valuable perspective in tackling intersectional issues. Miguel Torres arrived too, the weight of experience and recent introspection bringing a quiet integrity to his presence. Once everyone was settled, Jasmine rose, the quiet room focusing on her with an intensity fueled by expectation and determination. Thank you all for coming. Today we begin not just as observers of history, but as architects of our future. The room rippled with nods, an undercurrent of agreement reinforcing the quiet strength of their shared mission. Each individual brought with them not just experiences, but the promise of action. A powerful fusion of perspectives poised to challenge and redefine the status quo. Our first task, Jasmine continued, is to address the immediate actions we can take to implement the policy reforms we've identified. We need practical strategies that can be enacted within our existing framework but have the potential to reach beyond it. Elena leaned forward, her voice imbued with the passion of someone who understood the intersection of law and community empowerment. We need to create policies that actively dismantle barriers to equity, from environmental injustices to educational disparities. Her words opened a floodgate of ideas, a surge of contributions from every corner of the room, weaving a narrative of inclusive justice. Together, the group dissected the complex web of issues, anchoring their solutions in near-term goals that could be measured and evaluated over time. Miguel added his voice to the conversation, leaning into his emerging role as a bridge between law enforcement and the community. Training programs need a complete overhaul. It's not just about awareness, but integrating new responses to prevent biases from seeping into our day-to-day operations. His comments struck a chord, the group collectively recognizing the inevitable necessity of evolving old practices into new ways of equitable policing. Jasmine felt an ember of hope flare brighter, a promise of progress amid the crowded tables of ideas. Despite the momentum, a momentary lull punctuated the discussions, a quiet hum of hesitation settling over the room, a remnant of past attempts marred by resistance. Sensing the need for revitalized inspiration, Jasmine spoke, strong and steady, her words imbued with grit and purpose. I know this is not easy. Implementing change never is. But each of us brings a unique strength to this table, and together we are a formidable force. The declaration re-energized the attendees, a renewed surge of commitment sparking resurgence through the rows. It was no longer merely a meeting. It had become an emblem of tangible potential, a living testament to the power of unified resolve. As they moved toward the conclusion of the session, Jasmine turned the focus to Elias Freeman, a teacher who had lived and breathed the reality of the school-to-prison pipeline. He had long advocated for preventative measures, but saw this committee as a vehicle for genuine, actionable change. We have to engage our youth in this process, give them agency in shaping reforms that affect their future, Elias emphasized, his resolve a beacon for sustained inclusion. Elias's insight resonated deeply, crystallizing the importance of fostering future generations in this sprawling ecosystem of reform to engage them as allies and advocates, not spectators. The group recognized this, further anchoring their initiatives in long-term visions that incorporated education, mentorship, and youth advocacy. The meeting adjourned on a note of profound unity, the collective having reached a consensus. Detailed plans that would be implemented with immediate effect, alongside ongoing advocacy to push for systemic policy changes. As participants exited, Jasmine lingered, collecting her thoughts, already strategizing the next steps fostered by the knowledge that shadows danced in the corridors of power, poised to disrupt their path. But even under such a looming threat, today had validated her belief that they were on the brink of something transformative. The spirit of collaboration illuminating this room surpassed any singular effort, proving that solidarity could overcome even the most challenging of obstacles. As Jasmine locked the door behind her, she stepped into the bright afternoon with newfound clarity and dedication, emboldened by the collective's drive and vision. How will you contribute to transforming intent into action in your community? Comment on how this story inspires you to engage in movements for justice, ensuring voices unite toward progress and equity. As autumn leaves swirled in vivid rust and gold outside her office window, Jasmine sat at her desk, organizing the day's strategy meetings and reviewing updates from the Reform Committee. Momentum was gaining, yet the whispers of clandestine resistance lay like shadows over every breakthrough. She knew navigating these waters required both caution and courage, each decision needing to be as calculated as it was principled. The phone on her desk rang, and she recognized the caller ID immediately. It was the city's mayor, who had remained outwardly supportive of Jasmine's reforms, but had shown signs of pressure under the weight of quiet opposition from influential circles. "Sheriff Calloway," the mayor greeted, his voice a blend of geniality and urgency over the crackling line. "We need to discuss the implications of your proposed policies in light of recent feedback from the council." Jasmine braced herself, anticipation flickering through her thoughts. "Of course, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure we can work through whatever concerns have been raised," she replied evenly. As the conversation unfolded, the mayor's hesitation became apparent, parsed with caution bred from political tightropes and the balancing act of appeasing multiple interests. "There are concerns about allocations of resources. Some are suggesting the reform could stretch our capabilities thin." The words were careful, loaded with bureaucratic jargon that belied the underlying tension, an effort to maintain the facade of partnership while suggesting a reassessment more aligned with tradition. Determined not to let the ambivalence stall progress, Jasmine spoke with conviction, the clarity of her vision cutting through the subtext. "The community has made it clear that these reforms are non-negotiable. Streamlining operations with thoughtful resource management isn't just feasible, it's essential." She offered concrete examples of successful initiatives from other municipalities, data that supported sustainable implementation with measurable benefits. Her argument was persuasive, meticulously prepared to counter challenges she knew would arise from those resistant to change. The mayor remained noncommittal, his silence a canvas of contemplation yet to be painted with definitive action. Jasmine recognized the pause as more than mere timing. It was a crossroads, his decision the hinge on which future progress would turn. "Let's revisit these discussions with the key stakeholders," the mayor finally suggested, his tone lighter but fraught with the politics of decision-making. "I trust your expertise, Sheriff, and I see the value in your strategies. We just need to align our approaches to address the City Council's expectations." This was progress tentative, fraught with obstacles, but progress nonetheless. Jasmine agreed to the meeting, their collaboration offering a glimpse of potential, the artistry of reform emerging from the brushstrokes of compromise and commitment. Ending the call, she leaned back, allowing herself a moment to digest both the relief and the responsibility that came from navigating these intricate waters. The mayor's decision to engage, though measured, felt like a current had shifted, subtly yet significantly, in their favor. Stepping out of her office, Jasmine resolved to prepare for the upcoming discussions with renewed vigor. Every policy detail, every community endorsement would be harnessed to fuel their cause, each day defined by the intersection of resolve with reality. As she made her way down the corridor, she passed familiar faces offering nods and words of encouragement. These gestures reinforced her resolve to cultivate a justice system vibrant with integrity and inclusive of the multiple narratives shaping its evolution. Miguel joined her as they exited the building, his presence a constant reminder of the power of allyship and changed perspectives. He had become one of the staunch supporters, working directly at the grassroots level with the community to foster trust and open communication. "How did it go with the mayor?" Miguel asked, adjusting his jacket against the brisk breeze sweeping the street. "It's a dance," Jasmine replied with a wry smile. "But we got our foot in the door, and that's more than we had yesterday." Miguel offered an approving clap on her shoulder. "We'll keep pushing. Little by little, these small victories will add up. People are starting to really see the difference, and that's what counts." Together they walked toward their next strategic meeting, where allies awaited with optimism and perseverance. Their steps, a synchrony within the framework of dedicated changemakers, bore witness to the power of collective effort in rewriting a history long overdue for revision. Jasmine glanced up at the sky as they moved through the city, a vast expanse stretching endlessly overhead, a reminder of dreams as limitless as the horizon itself, urging them onward. The whispers of dissent remained, their presence shadowed but powerless to subdue the growing chorus of unwavering determination. In the days to come, she knew these foundational elements of collaboration and strategy would guide them through any twilight of uncertainty. It was the beginning of a transformation written with the ink of resilience, drafted with community inclusion, and bound by a shared vision for justice. What motivates you to continue striving for change in the face of challenges? Share your experiences and thoughts as we explore this collective journey toward justice and reform, shaped by unity and hope. Inside the police department's bustling precinct, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The reform initiatives spearheaded by Jasmine were beginning to ripple through the ranks, challenging long-standing norms and ruffling more than a few feathers. Yet, amid this sea of upheaval, there were those who stood more resolved than ever to embrace change. Jasmine watched her team from the doorway, the dedicated officers working tirelessly amid the constant hum of ringing phones and clattering keyboards. Beside her stood Captain Hannah Monroe, a stalwart ally whose no-nonsense leadership style had won the respect of her unit. The precinct was a microcosm of the community at large, divided in its responses to the reform, with tensions running high as they adapted to the new directive. Yet Jasmine remained hopeful, believing in the cumulative power of every small shift, each incremental change carving a path to a more equitable system. "Hannah," Jasmine addressed, drawing her attention to a group at the far end of the room, "I want to ensure that all our officers truly understand the goals behind these reforms, not just know what they are, but why they're necessary." Captain Monroe nodded, her pragmatic approach well suited to the challenge. "We're already hosting targeted workshops, interactive sessions that foster dialogue and understanding, but some are resistant. They see it as undermining their authority rather than enhancing our service." Jasmine appreciated her candor, understanding the difficulty in shifting deeply entrenched mindsets. Acknowledging resistance is the first step, but we need to push through. Let's identify more voices within the department who support the change. They can mentor and influence peers from within. As their conversation continued, Jasmine considered the layers of opposition they faced. Much of it was rooted in fear, the fear of relinquishing power, of confronting biases, of adapting to unfamiliar paradigms. Overcoming these barriers required persistent engagement and the cultivation of authentic relationships. The recent division within the department had resulted in strained dynamics evident even at the administrative level. A few officers openly questioned the new direction, their voices rising in meetings like rogue waves against a gathering tide. Yet those very ripples had sparked conversations Jasmine had longed to see, an openness to question, to learn, and to develop empathy where there had once been silence. The balance teetered between dissent and progress, and into this gap stepped voices of reason, bridging both realms. Officers like Miguel Torres, who had himself navigated the rocky transition towards understanding, embodied this new wave of thought, facilitating workshops, sharing stories of personal transformation, and, crucially, listening. As the morning wore on, Jasmine joined one of these training sessions, her presence garnering attention, reinforcing her commitment to hands-on leadership. The room was filled with personnel at varying ranks, all gathered to discuss de-escalation techniques and cultural competency, a topic met with both curiosity and skepticism. Jasmine observed from the back, watching the transformation unfold, as Miguel engaged them with candor and humility, walking them through exercises designed to illuminate blind spots and foster communication. It was the kind of exchange she envisioned, raw, challenging, yet no less potent in its potential to alter perceptions. "I know these changes might seem daunting," Miguel admitted, his voice steady, "but embracing them can vastly improve our work and community trust. It's time we all step forward, cautiously, but together." His words resonated, stirring mixed emotions across the room. Some folded their arms, skeptical, while others nodded, absorbing the weight of responsibility each carried. The session ended with Miguel fielding questions, dismantling misconceptions, and encouraging feedback, a dialogue that continued in earnest even after the workshop concluded. Jasmine felt a swell of optimism as she watched them engage. It was a reminder of the power inherent in allowing space for growth and understanding, a testament to the belief that people could, indeed, change. As officers filed out, Jasmine remained in the room, considering the progress made despite the friction. Her mind echoed with voices and stories shared in trust, a medley of insights from the community and her team that emboldened her vision. Changes were slowly taking root, and though the path was fraught with challenges, the tenacity of those within the department ready to embrace a new standard demonstrated that this transformative journey was not only possible but already underway. Jasmine knew they were building something enduring, a legacy of inclusion and reform that could withstand pressures both inside and out. Her focus shifted back to the precinct's cheerful cacophony, a renewed resolve settling over her. The commitment she observed today reminded her of why she embarked on this path, an unwavering mission to create a culture where justice was as much about listening as it was about enforcing the law. Would you consider such comprehensive reform in your community? Share how these stories inspire your voice and actions in pursuing change that ripples through systems, fostering hope and unity. Jasmine sat in her office, the evening shadows lengthening across the room as the sun dipped below the horizon. Her mind was a swirl of thoughts, reflecting on the day's progress balanced against the challenges that remained. The precinct had become a crucible of change, and although the heat was intense, the potential for transformation was undeniable. A knock at her door drew her from contemplation. It was Lieutenant Derek Harper, standing at the threshold with a complexity of emotions playing across his face. Harper was a figure of the old guard, respected for his years of service, but emblematic of the era Jasmine aimed to evolve beyond. "Sheriff, do you have a moment?" he asked, his tone measured but tinged with an uncharacteristic humility. "Of course, Derek. Come in," Jasmine replied, gesturing to the chair opposite her desk. She closed her laptop with a decisive click, turning her full attention to the discussion at hand. Harper took a seat, his hands resting on his knees as he gathered his thoughts. Jasmine could see that this conversation had been a long time coming. Beneath his stoic exterior, a shift had begun, a recognition sparked by the reform's incursion into entrenched practices. "I've been thinking about the changes we're implementing," Harper began, mindful of the words he chose. "I'll admit I wasn't sure at first. Old habits, you know." He offered a wry smile, self-awareness softening his expression. Jasmine appreciated his candor, recognizing vulnerability as the first step toward growth. "I understand, Derek. Change is always tough, especially when it challenges what we've become accustomed to." He nodded, absorbing her understanding. "But seeing the way Miguel and others have embraced the new protocols, I'm starting to see the value. Maybe it's time I learned a few new things myself." His admission was like a fissure through stone, revealing the fertile ground where new ideas could take root. Jasmine saw this not just as a personal victory, but as evidence that even the staunchest resistance could be softened with patience and purpose. "I'm glad you're open to it, Derek. Your experience and perspective add value to these initiatives," Jasmine said, her words reinforcing his worth within the larger narrative of reform. "And I think there's much you can contribute to the dialogue." Harper leaned back, a reflective somberness entering his demeanor. "You know, Jasmine, when I started out, things were different. It was about enforcing the rules, keeping things in order. But now, I realize there's more to policing than authority." Jasmine nodded, encouraging the flow of his reflections. "It's about connection, accountability, and fairness, ensuring our community trusts and feels supported by those sworn to protect them." The conversation wove seamlessly from self-realization to agency-wide impacts, crafting a narrative where tradition became a scaffold for progression, rather than an anchor for inertia. Harper, a veteran of the force, now stood at the edge of a broader understanding, ready to join the chorus for change in more than just token gestures. "I'm with you, Sheriff," he concluded, resolve solidifying his words. Let's make this department something we're all proud to be part of. Jasmine felt the resonance of his commitment, a reaffirmation of the inclusive culture she aspired to cultivate within the department. Together, they discussed plans for Harper to lead several upcoming seminars, his years of insight serving as a bridge for those measuring their own reconciliation between past practices and new standards. As their meeting concluded, Harper left the office with an air of renewed purpose, a singular shift among many that heralded the dawn of a reformed ethos, echoing through the corridors of justice. Jasmine sat back, allowing the quiet of her office to envelop her for a moment longer. The night crept in, its stillness a companion, as she reflected on the continuum of transformation that bound both individual and collective wills to a shared goal. Each commitment, each conversation, added momentum to the forward progression toward a system defined by empathy and equity. With charts and maps of the city sprawled across her desk, Jasmine began planning the next steps, her mind a careful architect of possibilities, grounded in practical realities and sustained by the spirit of collaboration. It was an ongoing cycle of reflection and action she had grown accustomed to, one that fueled her ability to navigate the shifting dynamics of reform with consistency and compassion. Outside, the city's lights twinkled like constellations in the night, a reminder of the multifaceted community she served. Jasmine knew the journey was long, fraught with challenges yet girded by a legacy of resilience and hope that formed the backbone of her resolve. As she locked her office for the night, her thoughts lingered on the many chapters still unwritten, penned by those unyielding in their purpose and unified by shared belief. For this was not just a personal endeavor, it was a movement heralded by voices rising to the call for justice, equality, and an inclusive tomorrow defined by shared humanity. How does this story inspire you to challenge norms and advocate for change in your community? Engage with the narrative, lend your voice, and become part of the dialogue for sustainable, impactful reform. The air crackled with energy as Jasmine found herself once again in the heart of the community she served. It was early evening in the narrow streets, life brimming with vibrant conversations, children's laughter, and the rhythmic pulse of distant music. The warmth of shared purpose enveloped the throng of neighbors gathered to support a local event, a testament to solidarity, equally celebratory and resolute. Jasmine had been invited to speak at this gathering, a multicultural festival designed to bridge gaps and foster connections among the city's diverse residents. The festival burst with color and life, stalls lined with art, food, and music, representing the myriad cultures, each adding their unique flavor to the communal tapestry. The stage was modest but decorated with care, strung with bright paper lanterns swaying gently in the breeze. Jasmine stood to the side, content to observe for a moment as the crowd moved through the festival with a lightness of spirit that belied the challenges they continued to face. But one face in particular caught her attention, a face that stirred the guilt-laden embers of potential redemption. Officer Ryan Collins stood among the crowd. With a group of young recruits he had taken under his wing since the tribunal, he was different. There was a new determination, an openness in his stance that said more than words could convey. He was talking with the family, their children giggling at something he said, his demeanor genuine and respectful. Jasmine watched as he moved through the crowd, engaging with sincerity, each interaction a small step toward rebuilding trust, one conversation at a time. It was clear he was taking his pledge to transform, to enact redemption, seriously. The sight gave her hope, an affirmation of the quiet, persistent belief she held in the possibility of change. She moved through the crowd, collecting stories, savoring the array of voices who had become her community's chorus of strength. Then, it was time her signal came as a host motioned her to the stage. The audience gathered closely, their trust vested firmly in the leadership she represented. As Jasmine approached the microphone, the anticipations, "I want to thank each of you for making tonight possible," Jasmine began, her voice carrying with a warmth suffused with the heart of their gathering. "When I look out and see so many of you here, every race, every background, sharing in this moment, it reminds me of the strength we draw from our diversity." The festival goers erupted into applause, a wave of sound that tumbled like a pebble down the mountainside, its echo a whimsical testament to unity. "But this is only part of our journey," she continued, the crowd quieting once more. "As we celebrate tonight, we also commit ourselves to facing the challenges ahead together, stronger for our differences, united by our shared humanity." Jasmine's gaze swept across the myriad of faces, pausing on those who returned her glance with understanding, their stories woven into her own. Among them was Collins, his expression earnest, attentive, an unexpected ally in shaping the bridge between law enforcement and the communities they served. "We must continue to hold each other accountable, to strive for justice and empathy in every action, every decision," Jasmine declared, the conviction in her voice drawing nods of agreement, murmurs of a shared vision. Her words sparked vibrant discussions as she concluded, stepping away to a chorus of appreciation, engulfed in offers of support. She found herself encouraged by the generosity of spirit encircling the celebration, the shared endeavor they had all become a part of. As the night deepened, lanterns flickered among the trees, casting their glow over paths lined with revelers. Music enveloped the square, an unscripted symphony of hope and determination, playing out beneath a blanket of stars. Collins approached her as the crowd thinned, his posture more relaxed, embodying the tentative bridge between past errors and future possibilities. "Sheriff Calloway," he greeted, the sincerity in his voice weaving through the festival's ambient sounds. "I just wanted to say thank you for the chance, for believing in change." Jasmine smiled, his acknowledgement affirming the latent strength of compassion and resilience. "You've taken the steps, Ryan. It's not an easy road, but it's a necessary one." She extended her hand, their handshake a renewed pact forged in understanding and respect. Colin's young recruits gathered around him, eager to follow the path he was now trailblazing, each grappling with the responsibility the profession bestowed, striving to lean into the possibilities of redemption and reform. As Jasmine watched them depart, she felt the weight of the progress they had kindled. Not without struggle, yet no longer just a fleeting promise. It was change embodied in every person who dared to imagine differently, who chose to step forward despite the shadows of uncertainty. Tonight's festival was more than a gathering. It was a testament to the tapestry they were weaving, each thread a contribution towards a community interwoven with justice, compassion, and solidarity. How do you envision your role in fostering inclusive communities and justice-oriented environments? Share your ideas and experiences as part of this narrative, shaping a legacy sustained by equity and collaboration. The morning sun broke over the city with a warmth that promised renewal, casting golden rays across streets that echoed with the soft hum of awakening life, a metaphor for the community's burgeoning consciousness. Jasmine walked with purpose, the pavement underfoot as familiar as the path she was forging toward equity and justice. Today marked the inaugural meeting of a new alliance, a coming together of civic leaders, nonprofit organizations, and community advocates. Their mission was to dismantle the rigid infrastructures of systemic inequality, to transcend the boundaries that had long divided their city. The meeting was held at a local community center, its walls adorned with murals depicting the vibrant history of their neighborhood, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who had come before, who had laid the groundwork for the possibilities now within reach. Jasmine opened the door to the meeting hall and was greeted by the palpable buzz of conversation. A kind of hopeful urgency underpinned their gathering. Tables were arranged in concentric circles, inviting collaboration and ensuring every voice was equally valued. As people found their seats, Jasmine marveled at the diversity present, a true spectrum reflecting the multifaceted identity of their community. Central to the meeting's objectives was a commitment to collaborative creation of new policies, initiatives that not only addressed inequities directly, but also constructed a sustainable infrastructure for future advocacy and action. Elena Foxton was among the first to speak, her environmental expertise shedding light on the way systemic environmental neglect had further isolated marginalized communities. Her voice resonated with the depth of experience in research, from lead pipes to insufficient green spaces issues often ignored in traditional reform narratives. But change is possible, Elena asserted, her gaze meeting those around her, kindling their resolve, and it begins with us. Next, Marcus Evans, a long-standing community organizer, soared into the discussion with insights rooted in decades of work for educational equity and opportunity. His contributions interwove the need to dismantle the school-to-prison pipeline, highlighting how systemic failures to invest in education bred cycles of poverty and incarceration. Education is empowerment, Marcus proclaimed, his passion contagious. Let's ensure our children have access to the resources they deserve so that justice begins in the classroom and grows outward. The conversation flourished, each participant offering insights and proposals, their synergies forming potential pathways towards a more just and inclusive cityscape. Jasmine took notes, her focus on threading these ideas into coherent action plans, ensuring they were not merely aspirations but developed strategies primed for implementation. As she listened, her mind processed the intricacies of collaborative efforts, the clashing ideas melding into a harmonious blueprint for reform. Jasmine's leadership role was about synthesis as much as guidance, bridging the disparate elements into a singular, progressive vision. Miguel contributed as well, speaking to the culture shift needed within law enforcement, a theme that intertwined with every narrative, recognizing the necessity of evolving perspectives and practices to build genuine trust within communities. This isn't just about us, Miguel acknowledged, his voice threading through the room with a quiet determination, but about the generations that follow. If we do this right, they'll inherit a city where justice isn't aspirational but a given. The group embraced this long-term mindset, their conversations cementing a shared commitment to fostering environments where every citizen could thrive, devoid of the invisible walls that once restricted progress. Parallel to policy discussions, connections were woven, networks of mutual support and accountability growing robust and interdependent. It was this community infrastructure, wrapped around Jasmine's vision for systemic reform, that held the greatest promise from this alliance. As the session concluded, tentative steps gave way to confident strides, a testament to the depth of their resolve and the clarity of their purpose. Jasmine stood, offering closing remarks that balanced gratitude with a call to sustained action. Today, we've set a direction, she affirmed, her voice vibrant with conviction. But this work is ongoing. It's about every meeting, every choice in the coming days. Let's define justice with action and make this vision our reality. The room erupted with applause, a rapturous affirmation of their shared journey. Participants lingered in conversation, their exchange now forged with the energy of inclusion and the prospect of realizable change. As they dispersed under the midday sun, Jasmine lingered a moment, her heart full with both the weight and hope of the task before them. It was a moment rich with promise, woven into the fabric of time. The tapestry of change, no longer a distant ambition, but an unfolding reality, nourished by the community's collective will. Together, they were more than individuals fighting isolated battles. They were united architects of justice, poised to reconstruct their world with every utterance, every action, reflective of their combined vision. How would you contribute to such a collective effort in your community? Engage with us as we shape the dialogue for justice, unity, and lasting change, empowered by our shared history and aspirations for a better future. Jasmine felt invigorated as she left the community center, her mind awash with the multitude of ideas and collaborations born from the morning's assembly. Each conversation was like a tributary feeding into a vast river of reform, the potency of their collective action carving new channels through the bedrock of systemic inertia. It was, without a doubt, the kind of progress that fueled her continued resolve. Back at the precinct, the atmosphere buzzed with a heightened expectancy. Jasmine's steps were quick and purposeful, her presence commanding attention, as officers and staff acknowledged her with respectful nods. The changes she had championed were gaining traction, subtly yet steadily rewriting the code by which they operated. Settling into her office, Jasmine reflected on the range and depth of the community's engagement, each voice a vital thread in the tapestry of transformation. It was a rare gift to be surrounded by so many who believed in the possibility of a justice system that truly reflected the values of equity and fairness. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. It was Amy Park, a researcher who had been instrumental in assembling data for the reform initiatives. She entered with a palpable energy, her hands holding a stack of papers that seemed to brim with potential. "Sheriff, I've compiled the latest statistics on our community interaction programs," Amy began, placing the documents on Jasmine's desk. "The feedback is overwhelmingly positive, and I've identified key areas where we can further align our efforts with the educational reforms we discussed this morning." Jasmine perused the data, each chart and graph a testament to the positive impact of their initiatives. It was empowering to see theory translated into reality, and even more so to know these changes were built on the foundation of collaborative insight. "What we're seeing here," Amy continued, enthusiasm lacing her words, "is just the beginning. Our efforts are reaching more people, opening up dialogues, and cultivating trust." Jasmine nodded, her commitment to this cause reaffirmed by the tangible proof of progress reflected on the pages. "This is excellent work, Amy," she replied, her tone appreciative. "Let's build on this momentum. I want to ensure every segment of our initiatives is integrated seamlessly, creating a cohesive strategy that's as comprehensive as it is transformative." Their discussion was both focused and expansive, with Jasmine directing attention towards outreach strategies aimed at engaging even the most disenfranchised voices within the community. Amy's insights provided a roadmap, her meticulous research functioning as both compass and guide. Once Amy departed, Jasmine returned to her ongoing tasks, her thoughts occasionally drifting back to the vibrant energy of the morning's gathering. The priority now was ensuring continuity, every conversation and policy translating into actionable, lasting impacts, each step instilling resilience within the fabric of their work. Later that afternoon, Jasmine convened with her leadership team, strategizing upcoming town halls to further expand the dialogue between the police department and the community at large. The upcoming events were structured as open forums, designed to elicit genuine discourse and constructive feedback, reinforcing their commitment to transparency and accountability. Each town hall is an opportunity, Jasmine emphasized to her team, to learn, grow, and reinforce the trust we are working hard to rebuild. We must ensure every question is answered, every concern addressed. Her words struck a chord, resonating through the room like a pledge they all shared. As the day waned, Jasmine stepped out of her office, allowing herself a moment to observe the precinct's hum around her, a nucleus of action, its very essence redefined by a shared mission. Footsteps echoed through the corridors, whispers mixed with voices of determination. She saw officers engaged in discussions about their recent diversity training, their interactions punctuated with questions that reflected genuine curiosity and resolve. Despite the challenges and the remnants of resistance, the shift was palpable. Jasmine felt the movement she had envisioned unfurl before her like a banner, fierce against the winds of adversity. As she made her way towards the exit, she looked at the city bathed in the golden light of sunset. The transformation was ongoing, complex and unyielding, but each day, together, they moved a little closer to a system that wasn't just reformed but revitalized. Her work, her community's work, was far from over. Yet, as she walked into the evening, the echoes of unity and progress accompanied her, a testament to the power of collective will in the quest for justice. How do you envision contributing to ongoing community transformations? Join us in continuing this narrative of collective empowerment as we strive for justice through unity, inclusion, and resilient hope. As evening settled over the city, a gentle rain began to fall. drumming softly against the rooftops and washing the streets in a reflective sheen. Jasmine watched from her window as the droplets danced under the streetlights, their rhythmic patter a soothing backdrop to her thoughts. Today had been a day of significant strides, but like every day in this burgeoning movement, it had come with its set of challenges and the inevitable reminder that progress was a gradual, sometimes precarious affair. She turned away from the window, her gaze settling on a message left on her desk, a reminder of the upcoming town hall meeting. This event was crucial, an opportunity not just for community leaders to speak, but for Jasmine to listen more deeply than ever before. It was one thing to propose change, it was another to implement it effectively, tailored to the truths and needs of those she served. Her phone vibrated with an incoming text. It was from Mikola, her daughter, a quick note of encouragement and love. Jasmine smiled, feeling that familiar surge of warmth and responsibility. Mikola was both her anchor and her inspiration, a reminder of why every step forward mattered. As the rain intensified, Jasmine made her way to the precinct's communal area, where a small group had gathered informally. A mix of officers, community volunteers, and staff members lingering after hours, bridging bonds over coffee and conversation. Miguel stood among them, his laugh recognizable in the room's gentle din. As she approached, he turned, welcoming her into the circle with a nod. "Sheriff, care to join us?" Jasmine accepted his offer, settling into the circle where the atmosphere was relaxed, yet filled with earnest dialogue, a microcosm of the larger community exchanges they were working hard to cultivate. Talk drifted from recent training sessions to personal anecdotes of encounters that had left lasting impressions. Each story, each voice contributed to the shared tapestry of experiences, the highs and lows, the moments of clarity alongside the lingering question. Jasmine's presence was less of a focal point and more a part of the collective discourse, her views neither higher nor more privileged than those around her. She listened intently, taking in the nuances, the concerns met with determination, the laughter punctuated by the solidarity of purpose. A young officer spoke up, her earnestness reflecting both youthful idealism and dawning understanding. "I joined the force because I wanted to make a difference, but honestly, it's been harder than I thought. Changing people's minds, even my own." Miguel nodded in agreement, offering his own journey as a testament to the challenges of transformation from skeptic to advocate, each step fueled by moments of both doubt and enlightenment. Real change isn't linear. It's a series of steps, sometimes forward, sometimes back, but always part of the progress. Their conversation resonated deeply within Jasmine, affirming her conviction that reform was rooted as much in the corridors of power as it was in the hearts of individuals brave enough to question their own perspectives. "Every effort counts," Jasmine added, her words a gentle reminder of the larger narrative they were striving to construct. "Your work, your openness, it lays the groundwork for others to follow." A sense of camaraderie suffused the room, the invisible threads that connected them weaving tighter, enriched by mutual respect and shared ambition. The gathering lingered into the night, each participant leaving with more than they arrived, added nuance to their understanding, coupled with the resolve to persevere. As the group began to disperse and the precinct grew quieter, Jasmine took a moment to internalize the evening's reflections. It was moments like these, simple, profound connections, that propelled her vision and invigorated the path toward a justice system marked by its humanity and inclusivity. Stepping out into the rain, Jasmine felt the cool droplets against her skin, each one a brief acknowledgement of the journey's unyielding, persistent nature. The city's pulse continued beneath the downpour, a steady rhythm echoing the community's commitment to a better future. She walked home, her steps guided by the twinkling lights of the cityscape flicker, a symbol of the undying hope lighting their way forward. It was clear that while the effort demanded patience and tenacity, it also garnered the kind of transformative power that spanned generations, echoes of impact that would continue long after each effort, each speech, and each silent vigil had ended. In this narrative of justice, equity, and unity, each story, every voice added a sentence, a paragraph, a chapter, until the book of progress was completed. enriched by diverse perspectives and the indelible mark of shared humanity. How can your voice contribute to the larger tapestry of justice and community change? Share your reflections, join the conversation, and let's continue to foster spaces where inclusion and equity are more than ideals, they are realities within reach. In a small, dimly lit cafe on the outskirts of the city, Jasmine sat alone at a corner table, enveloped by the hum of quiet conversations and the comforting aroma of freshly brewed coffee. It was a space she came to when she needed to think, a sanctuary where the clatter of the outside world fell away, leaving room for contemplation and clarity. Outside, rain fell in a gentle, persistent rhythm, tapping softly against the windows, a calming soundtrack to her thoughts. The gathering clouds above matched the pensive mood she carried as she reflected on the whirlwind of events that had dominated the past few months. Despite the progress and the burgeoning solidarity within the community, challenges continued to surface, mirroring the unpredictable storms that appeared on the horizon. The path of reform was far from linear. It was marked by twists and turns as intricate as the city's streets, shadowed by the weight of resistance but illuminated by the sparks of change. Jasmine's thoughts lingered on the silent protest, how it had captured the city's heart with its simplicity and gravitas, shifting the narrative in ways that were still being written. Yet the meetings behind closed doors, whispers of intrigue among old power dynamics, indicated that not everyone shared in the vision for transformation. Her phone buzzed with a message from Elena Foxton, highlighting recent proposals for environmental justice initiatives to be integrated into city planning. The synergy between the community's needs and these new actionable strategies rekindled her hope, adding a brushstroke of optimism to the broader canvas they painted together. Moments later, Jasmine's musings were interrupted by the arrival of Miguel Torres, who ambled in from the rain, his coat dripping slightly as he scanned the room until his eyes found her. He approached with the easy camaraderie they'd developed, a partnership forged in trials and triumphs. "Thought I might find you here," Miguel said, taking a seat across from her, his smile warm and unhurried. "Needed a break from the rain? Or just from everything?" "Both," Jasmine replied, her grin mirroring his as she pushed a mug of hot coffee towards him. "It's a lot to process, the swirl of activity around us." Miguel sipped appreciatively, nodding as he glanced around the cozy enclave. "Every small step feels momentous these days, doesn't it? Like we're on the cusp of something significant." Jasmine agreed, the conversation flowing easily between them, a rhythm familiar and reassuring. "I was just thinking about the upcoming town hall. We have an opportunity to deepen our connection with those whose voices we need most." Their eyes met, an implicit understanding threading their words. The imminent town hall was pivotal, a forum designed to amplify unheard perspectives, inviting stakeholders to discuss strategies that truly reflected their lived experiences. "I'll be there," Miguel added, his tone unwavering. "And I've spoken to some of the newer recruits. They're starting to see the potential, the need for these changes. It's palpable." The soft clinking of cutlery and muted conversations filled the spaces between their dialogue, a lull that offered serenity and reflection amid the turbulent ocean of reform. Together, they envisioned a future where each policy, every program, addressed the roots of injustice with authenticity and respect. As they spoke, the cafe's door swung open, admitting Leah, the waitress who had unwittingly sparked a movement, a witness to clandestine dealings that threatened their progress. Her courage had caught the tide of resistance at its crest, ensuring that transparency guided justice's course. Leah approached their table, smiling with recognition. "I didn't expect to see you both here," she said, delivering a tray of pastries with practiced ease. Her presence was a reminder of the simple acts that so often sparked profound change. Settling into easy conversation, the three exchanged stories, minor victories, and shared insights, an organic confluence of experiences that underscored their shared mission. Each anecdote, each laugh, blended seamlessly, painting a portrait not of individuals, but of a community bound by purpose. As dusk descended, drawing the day to a close, Jasmine felt a renewed sense of clarity amid the quiet contemplation shared within the cafe's cozy nest. They were architects of a narrative much larger than any one conversation, their actions the ink that filled the pages with promise and perseverance. As they rose to leave, the rain having softened to a mist, Jasmine's heart thrummed with quiet determination. She stepped into the evening, accompanied by allies whose strength fortified her own resolve. Together, they were a measured march into the future, a journey of unwavering intent and collective vision. The rain fell freely now, mingling with the lights that guided the streets, the city's heartbeat moving to the rhythm of countless stories yearning for justice. With each step, Jasmine knew that while their work was far from over, they had forged a path forward, one defined by transparency, equity, and hope. What impact will you make in creating change and fostering connection in your own community? Share your story as we continue to build on this collective narrative, setting the stage for justice-filled chapters yet to be written. The town hall meeting had been billed as a turning point, an open forum where all voices could be heard and where the foundations for lasting change could be publicly committed to and elaborated upon. As Jasmine stepped onto the stage, a hush fell over the room, the packed auditorium a testament to the community's hunger for dialogue and progress. The energy in the air was palpable, a mixture of anticipation and the familiar tension that accompanies meaningful discussions about justice and reform. Jasmine glanced out at the sea of faces, each one etched with its own story, its own connection to the debate at hand. They were her allies, her challengers, her community, both the canvas and the artists shaping it. Thank you all for being here tonight, Jasmine began, her voice carrying warmth and determination, echoing through the spacious hall. Our work is just beginning, and I value each perspective and every contribution you bring. This conversation is where change happens, from ideas into actions that define our future. The audience was engaged, prepared to participate, and eager to delve into the nitty-gritty of policy, accountability, and community engagement. Jasmine had spent weeks preparing for this moment, crafting proposals and aligning plans with the feedback collected during countless meetings, rallies, and interactions. The first speaker, a respected elder named Mrs. Thompson, rose to share history and hopes, her voice reverberating with wisdom and a call for acknowledgement. She spoke of times when promises of change had faded like echoes in the wind, and her impassioned plea was clear. This time, it must be different. The room absorbed her words, the truth laying bare the road ahead, spotlighting the crucial need for transparency and relentless pursuit of accountability. Jasmine listened, the weight of her role as both listener and leader resounding with each pause, each agreement. Mrs. Thompson's words set the stage for others to speak, each voice contributing to the tapestry of narratives that wove the town hall into a living document of aspirations and concerns. From business leaders to political figures, young activists to educators, the discourse was dynamic, marked by both challenges and solutions. Jasmine was particularly moved by a high school student named Ava, whose eloquence and keen insights on educational reform demonstrated wisdom beyond her years. She argued passionately for a curriculum that not only educated but empowered students to navigate and dismantle the systemic bias they faced. "This is our world too," Ava asserted, her eyes blazing with conviction. "We deserve an education that doesn't just inform but inspires us to create change, so we can grow up in a city that's truly fair." The applause was thunderous, a response to the raw, earnest appeal of a generation unapologetically demanding their voices be heard. Jasmine nodded in solidarity, inspired by the voice of future leaders who would one day take their places in shaping society. As the night wore on, the discussions grew ever more animated, fueled by shared commitments and the indomitable spirit of a community united in its purpose. The challenges were formidable, but the solutions, born of diverse experiences and visionary collaboration, were stirring and compelling. When the forum concluded, it was with a palpable sense of progress and unity, the meeting woven into the city's evolving narrative like a critical chapter. Jasmine stepped down from the dais, pausing to reflect on the dialogues exchanged, the bridges built, and the newfound understanding realized. The town hall had not solved every problem, nor answered every question, but it had laid bare the power of collective engagement, the realization that every voice held the potential to influence the path ahead. As people slowly filtered out of the auditorium, Jasmine took a moment to breathe, to appreciate the progress yet to be expedited and the encouragement etched into the fabric of their endeavor. She felt the warm hum of conversation still linger in the air, a testament to their shared journey, a connection that transcended the evening. Miguel caught up with her as the hall emptied, his expression one of satisfaction and presence. "That went well, Jasmine. There's so much to build on, and I'm proud of what we accomplished tonight." She smiled, the glow of their work reflecting in her eyes. "It's a start, Miguel, the right beginning toward meaningful change. Now, let's make sure we act on these promises." Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the world refreshed, the cool air alive with the scent of new beginnings. Jasmine felt the gentle pressure of her role, an architect of transformation amid a community sculpting its aspirations into reality. Walking through the twilight city, Jasmine felt a profound sense of gratitude for those who stood with her, building this with unyielding hope and quiet strength, the path of justice winding ever onward, emboldened by every step and every voice pledged to its cause. In the vast connected fabric of community, what role will you play in shaping change? Share your reflections as we forge a narrative fueled by collective wisdom and an unyielding quest for equity and understanding. Our next chapter awaits. How will you help write it?